Chapter 971. Receiving the Spear. Don't hesitate, Dionysus. Although I don't want to die either, it is something unavoidable. The only regret is that I probably won't have the chance to see with my own eyes the place in the depths of the spirit realm that governs the souls of all things. But it's good that you are still here. Dionysus, you told me you would complete this journey for me and witness the magnificent and mysterious scenery of the spirit realm. Will you live on for me, experience everything in this world, and be the continuation of my life? His voice weak, Amon seemed to perceive Dionysus's hesitation and uncertainty, but he just gave a wry smile, seemingly unafraid of his imminent death. He was just comforting his newly made friend in his own way, ensuring he wouldn't feel guilty or saddened by his death in the future. Come, answer me, Dionysus, will you? I will, I promise. Fists clenched, Dionysus was filled with immense regret at this moment. He regretted underestimating the cunning of the ancient evil being, and regretted not having accumulated enough experience earlier. If it were Heracles or any of his half-brothers from the same father god, perhaps they would not have so easily handed over their only trump card, thus putting themselves in peril. But now regret was meaningless. Dionysus could only hold Amon's hand tightly, making him the most solemn promise. I promise you, from today onward, my eyes will be your eyes. They will see everything in the world for you. My life will be the continuation of your life. You saved me from the ancient evil being, and my future will include half of yours. From now on, your name will forever be remembered in this world along with mine, eternally commemorated by countless mortals. Amon, in the name of the Son of the Divine King, I swear this to you, without concealing his origin, whether out of gratitude or the identity of Amon as the dying. And Amon could only smile at that, then gazes deeply into the eyes of Dionysus. A crimson gradually covered the bottom of his eyes, a second pupil appearing in the black pupils. Dionysus felt as if he was looking at two individuals at the same time, one as close as a father, the other only possessing cold greed. Come. Maintaining the last moments of clarity, Amon seized the hand of Dionysus that held the scepter. He spoke with difficulty, his voice resonating. Come, kill me, while I am still myself. From now on, you will be my continuation in the mortal realm. Come. Hiss, a sudden, piercing sound, about to completely lose the black pupils. Watching all this, Dionysus raised the scepter high and then thrust it fiercely into Amon's chest. The bloody imprint paused instantly, then slowly started to crack. Sensing the previously dangerous situation of its protector, silver lightning erupted with even greater strength. In an instant, it suppressed the tumultuous blood and enveloped the body of Amon. The hand holding the scepter trembled slightly, although Dionysus had seen things more shocking than this in the legends of the mortal realm more than once. Only having experienced it personally did he truly feel it deep in his soul. He would not forget this day, nor would he forget his promise. Looking at Amon, who gradually turned to ashes in the lightning, Dionysus felt his soul significantly heavier. Perhaps this is the weight of a promise, his promise to Amon. From now on, he was no longer the carefree himself, but also carried another person's life. Ancient Evil, Star of Death Omens. Muttering this name in the past, whenever he heard the father god overflow with praise for Heracles, although Dionysus agreed outwardly, he still felt somewhat unconvinced in his heart. Like Perseus, they just received more favoritism from Zeus, thus able to establish feats and great repute in the mortal realm. Don't hesitate, Dionysus. Although I don't want to die either, it is something unavoidable. The only regret is that I probably won't have the chance to see with my own eyes the place in the depths of the spirit realm that governs the souls of all things. But it's good that you are still here. Dionysus, you told me you would complete this journey for me and witness the magnificent and mysterious scenery of the spirit realm. Will you live on for me, experience everything in this world, and be the continuation of my life? His voice weak, Amon seemed to perceive Dionysus's hesitation and uncertainty, but he just gave a wry smile, seemingly unafraid of his imminent death. He was just comforting his newly made friend in his own way, ensuring he wouldn't feel guilty or saddened by his death in the future. Come, answer me, Dionysus, will you? I will, I promise. Fists clenched, Dionysus was filled with immense regret at this moment. He regretted underestimating the cunning of the ancient evil being, and regretted not having accumulated enough experience earlier. If it were Heracles or any of his half-brothers from the same father god, perhaps they would not have so easily handed over their only trump card, thus putting themselves in peril. But now regret was meaningless. Dionysus could only hold Amon's hand tightly, making him the most solemn promise. Chapter 972. Receiving the Spear _2. I promise you, from today on, my eyes are your eyes. They will see everything in the world for you. My life is the continuation of your life. You saved me in front of the ancient evil, and my future includes half of you. From now on, your name will be remembered forever in this world, engraved in the memory of countless mortals. Amon, in the name of the Son of the Divine King, I hereby swear this to you. He did not conceal his origins, whether out of gratitude or because of Amon's identity as the deceased. And Amon just smiled, then gazed into Dionysus's eyes. Crimson gradually covered the bottom of his eyes, and a second pupil appeared within the black iris. Dionysus felt as if he were looking into the eyes of two people at the same time. One made him feel close like a father, and the other only exuded cold greed. Come. Holding on to the last moments of lucidity, Amon forcefully grabbed Dionysus's hand that held the scepter. He spoke with difficulty, his voice carrying an echo. Come, kill me, while I am still myself. From now on, you will be my continuation in the mortal realm. Come. SSSD. A sudden shrill voice, about to completely lose the blackness of his eyes. Dionysus, watching all of this, raised the scepter high, and then fiercely plunged it into Amon's chest. The bloody seal instantly froze, and then shattered inch by inch. Seemingly sensing the previous peril of his protector, Silver Lightning unleashed even greater strength. It instantly suppressed the rioting blood color, enveloping Amon's body. Gripping the scepter, his hand trembled slightly, and although Dionysus had seen things more heart-shaking than this more than once in the tales of the mortal realm, only through personal experience did he feel it truly penetrate his soul. He would not forget this day, nor would he forget his promise. Looking at Amon before him turning to ashes in the lightning, Dionysus felt as if his heart had become much heavier. Perhaps this is the weight of a promise, his promise to Amon. From now on, he was no longer just his carefree self. He also carried another person's life. Ancient Evil, Star of Death Omens. Muttering this name in the past whenever he heard the father god praising Heracles, although Dionysus would agree outwardly, there was always an unwillingness in his heart. Just like Perseus, they were simply more favored by Zeus, and so they were able to establish feats and gain renown in the mortal realm. A sudden shrill voice, about to completely lose the blackness of his eyes. Dionysus, watching all of this, raised the scepter high, and then fiercely plunged it into Amon's chest. The bloody seal instantly froze, and then shattered inch by inch. Seemingly sensing the previous peril of his protector, Silver Lightning unleashed even greater strength. It instantly suppressed the rioting blood color, enveloping Amon's body. Gripping the scepter, his hand trembled slightly, and although Dionysus had seen things more heart-shaking than this more than once in the tales of the mortal realm, only through personal experience did he feel it truly penetrate his soul. He would not forget this day, nor would he forget his promise. Looking at Amon before him turning to ashes in the lightning, Dionysus felt as if his heart had become much heavier. Perhaps this is the weight of a promise, his promise to Amon. From now on, he was no longer just his carefree self. He also carried another person's life. Ancient Evil, Star of Death Omens. Muttering this name in the past whenever he heard the father god praising Heracles, although Dionysus would agree outwardly, there was always an unwillingness in his heart. Just like Perseus, they were simply more favored by Zeus, and so they were able to establish feats and gain renown in the mortal realm. Don't hesitate, Dionysus. Although I don't want to die either, this is something that can't be helped. The only pity is that I'll probably never get the chance to personally witness the place in the spirit realm where the souls of all beings are governed. But fortunately, you are still here. Dionysus, you told me that you would complete this journey for me, to see the magnificent and mystic scenery of the spirit realm for me. Will you live on for me, experience everything in this world, and be the continuation of my life? His voice was weak, and it seemed Ammon had seen through the hesitation and reluctance in Dionysus. But he just smiled carelessly, appearing unfeared by the impending death. He was only comforting his newly met friend in his own way, wanting him not to feel guilt and sorrow for his death in the future. Come, answer me, Dionysus, will you? I will, I promise. Fists clenched, Dionysus was filled with immense regret at this moment. He regretted underestimating the cunning of the ancient evil being, and regretted not having accumulated enough experience beforehand. If it were Heracles or any of his half-brothers from a different mother, they probably wouldn't have handed over their only trump card so easily, thereby putting themselves into danger. But now regret was pointless. Dionysus could only hold Ammon's hand tightly, making him the most solemn promise. I promise you that starting today, my eyes will be your eyes. They will see everything in the world for you. My life will be the continuation of your life. You saved me from the ancient evil being, and my future will have half of you in it. From this day onward, your name shall be as eternally known in this world as mine, remembered by countless mortals. Ammon, I swear to you in the name of the Son of the Divine King. Without concealing his origin, whether out of gratitude or due to Ammon's identity as the deceased. Ammon just smiled in response, then gazed into the eyes of Dionysus. Crimson gradually covered the bottom of his eyes, and a second pupil appeared in the black iris. Dionysus felt as though he was making eye contact with two people simultaneously, one as close as a father, and the other with only cold greed. Come. Struggling to stay lucid for the last moment, Ammon forcefully grabbed Dionysus's hand that held the scepter. With difficulty, he began to speak, his voice echoing. Come, kill me, while I am still myself. From now on, you will be my continuation in the mortal realm. Come. Hiss, a sudden shrill voice, and as the black pupils were about to completely fade away, Dionysus raised the scepter high and then plunged it fiercely through Ammon's chest. The mark of blood froze in an instant, and then shattered bit by bit. Sensing that its protector had been in grave danger before, the silver lightning erupted with even greater strength. It instantly suppressed the surging crimson, enveloping Ammon's body. The hand holding the scepter trembled slightly, although Dionysus had witnessed more heart-stirring events than this in the tales of the mortal realm. It was only by experiencing it himself did he genuinely feel it pierce deep into his heart. He wouldn't forget this day, nor would he forget his promise. Gazing at Ammon, gradually turning to ash within the lightning, Dionysus felt his own soul weighed down significantly. Perhaps this was the weight of a promise, his promise to Ammon. From now on, he was no longer just the carefree himself, he had taken on another person's life as well. Ancient Evil, Star of Death Omens. He silently recited this name. In the past, whenever he heard Father God praising Heracles, Dionysus, despite agreeing verbally, felt somewhat unconvinced in his heart. Like Perseus, they were merely more favored by Zeus, and that's why they were able to achieve greatness and fame in the mortal realm. Chapter 973, 4 points. Swoosh! Streaks of golden light raced across the sky, leaving trails of afterimages. In the direction of Perseus's gaze, obstacles along the path were invisible to it. The sharp light broke through the air. A light purple flame burned along its trajectory, the voices of millions of creatures worshipping and praising faintly audible. Contrary to the corrupted aura brought by the omen of Death Star, the golden afterimage brought only absolute victory and splendor. A strong divine power burned under the control of its master, constantly shortening the distance of space. Rushing towards the location of the Hall of Valor, at the core of the light and shadow, at this moment, the heart of the victory goddess almost cursed 1,000 times. Who knew? God of stars. Today she encountered a useless son of divine king. Earlier he had sworn that the safety of the Hall of Valor could be guarded, but now, his place was about to be silently stolen. Even from afar, the undisguised aura of the ancient evil being was as bright as fireworks in the night, which instantly awakened Nikki from her drowsy state, and she immediately rushed over with all her might. No one gave a warning, nor did anyone notify in advance. A huge conspicuous star body charging headlong, a path directed to crash into this place. Nikki couldn't believe what Perseus was doing. He actually committed such a dereliction of duty. You should know, this was not supposed to happen. The celestial heroic spirits were not limited to those selected by the Olympian pantheon from the mortal realm. The few outstanding individuals selected from the Bronze Age, the real heroic spirits of the Golden Age, and the heroes who believed in the goddess of wisdom. They also hold important positions among the celestial heroic spirits, and always greatly respect Nikki's opinions. Don't hesitate anymore, Dionysus. Although I don't want to die, there's nothing else we can do. If you don't act, I can't continue to live. The only bit of regret is that I probably won't have the chance to personally see the place in the depths of spirit realm that governs the souls of all beings. But fortunately it's not just me, you're here too. Dionysus, you told me. You will complete this journey for me. You will see the magnificent and mysterious scenery of the spirit realm. Will you replace me to live on, experience everything in this world, and be the continuation of my life? Voice weak, Amon seems to see Dionysus's hesitation and reluctance. But he just smiled indifferently, as if he is not afraid or anxious about his impending death. He was just comforting his newly made friend in his own way, letting him not feel guilty and sad about his death in the future. But listening to Amon's words, Dionysus felt even more ashamed. He had thought that Amon was afraid to face the threat of the ancient evil being, but it turned out to be completely different. Come, answer me, Dionysus, will you? I will, I promise. Fists clenched at this moment, Dionysus was full of regret. He regretted underestimating the cunning of the ancient evil being, and he regretted not accumulating enough experience before. If it was Heracles or any of his half-brothers, they probably would not have readily handed over their only trump card, putting themselves in a dangerous situation. After all, they had long been tested and experienced in the mortal realm, unlike him who had never been. But now regret was meaningless, the situation was irreversible. Dionysus could only firmly grasp Amon's hands, making his most solemn promise. Amon, I promise you, from today, my eyes will be your eyes. They will see everything in this world for you. My life will be the continuation of your life. You saved me in front of the ancient evil being. Then my future will include half of yours. From now on, your name will be eternally remembered in this world, remembered by countless mortals. Amon, in the name of the Son of Divine King, I swear to you, not hiding his origin anymore, whether out of gratitude or because of Amon's doomed fate. And Amon just smiled and then stared into Dionysus's deep eyes. A crimson gradually covered the bottom of his eyes, and a second heterochromatic pupil appeared in the black pupils. Across from him, Dionysus felt like he was looking at two people at the same time. One felt close like a father, the other only cold and greedy. Come. Hanging on to his last moments of clarity, Amon forcefully grasped the hand of Dionysus holding the scepter. He spoke with difficulty, his voice echoing slightly. Come, kill me, while I'm still myself. After that, you will be my continuation in this world. Quick, come. SSSH. Suddenly, a high-pitched sound, the black pupil almost completely disintegrating. Watching all of this, Dionysus raised his inherited scepter and then thrust it fiercely into Amon's chest. The scepter pierced without any obstruction. The force of the evil creature tried to block, but couldn't hinder it at all. The imprint of blood paused momentarily, then started to crack inch by inch. Seemingly sensing the previous dangerous situation of its protector, the silver lightning erupted with even greater power. It instantly suppressed the surging blood, enveloping Amon's body. The silver serpent danced and twirled, covering the body in front of it. The hand holding the scepter trembled slightly, although Dionysus had seen more heart-stirring events than this in the legends of the mortal realm. Only by experiencing it firsthand did he truly feel it penetrate into his heart. Chapter 974 4 Divisions _2. He will not forget this day, nor will he forget his own promise. Compared to his excursion this time, his life on Mount Olympus was so carefree and peaceful. Looking at Amon, who was gradually turning to ashes amidst the thunder and lightning, Dionysus felt as though his soul had become much heavier. It was as if he had donned a layer of clothing, or perhaps the dew of the early morning. Perhaps this is the weight of a promise, his promise to Amon. From now on, he was no longer the carefree individual, but also burdened with the life of another. After all, those who die corrupted by evil creatures, as well as those eradicated by the Divine King's divine power, find it difficult to preserve their souls. Amon was now dead to the point of no return. Even if the legendary well of reincarnation in the spirit realm were found, there would be no chance for his resurrection. Ancient Evil, Star of Death Omens. Muttering this name, Dionysus, although outwardly agreeing whenever he heard the Father God showering Heracles with praises, still felt somewhat reluctant to accept it in his heart. Like Perseus, they were simply more favored by Zeus, which allowed them to establish great achievements and fame in the mortal world. But now, just a few days of contact, and the death of the mortal companion of the other party had greatly moved Dionysus. The power possessed by the other seemed to genuinely come from within him. Thus now, he sincerely hoped that Heracles was not just all talk, but truly capable of turning the impossible into possible. As a human, suppress the ancient evil being beneath the starry sky. Heracles, what Amon and I could not do, I hope you can do it for us. The Father God was right. Whether it's the king of all monsters or the outer realm ancient god, these powerful beings who do not abide by the rules of the world are simply a cancer to it. Their existence only brings trouble to the world. Only by harnessing order to restrain all creatures, and covering everything with the sovereign's rules, can all spirits achieve peace and stability. That is also the path of my becoming a true god. This is the duty of the Divine King, and also the reason for the existence of all gods. From his birth into this world, Dionysus has always been receiving Zeus's teachings, and even amongst the gods, few knew of his existence. Under the focused guidance of Zeus, his thoughts in many areas undoubtedly aligned well with the intentions of the Divine King. Taking a deep breath, Dionysus turned his gaze away from where Amon had died and looked towards the distant star domain. At the time he was dealing with the offshoot of the ancient evil being, the omen of Death Star had already crashed into the star sector where the Hall of Valor was. Boom! 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 Before the towering crystal mountain, the clash between Heracles and the heroic spirits had not subsided since its inception. The scope of the fierce battle continued to grow wider, and the foes of the great hero were no longer just Perseus alone. Cancer, a demon captive by Hera, was exalted to the heavens after death. On its destined path, it should have died at the hands of Heracles. However, in this world, it didn't wait for the great hero and was sent early to ravage Athens, only to meet its end at the hands of Theseus. Pisces, the reflection of the goddess of beauty and the goddess of harmony. It was rumored that they had turned into fish to flee for their lives during the chaos brought by Typhon, and later two handsome mortal princes were promoted to take over this position. There were rumors that these two princes had more than a friendly relationship with Aphrodite wandering the mortal realm, but no one could confirm the truth behind it. Besides that, Andromeda, Cetus, Ares, Cassiopeia, aside from the heroic spirits purging evil creatures among the sunspots surrounding the blood sun, almost all the heroic spirits related to Olympus had arrived here. The emergence of the enemies undoubtedly brought greater pressure to the great hero, but for Heracles, this was only a stepping stone to challenge himself. Throbbing heartbeats like a celestial god beating the war drums, an endless supply of strength breeding between his muscles. Perseus suddenly realized that when he was alone, he could not overcome the mortal before him. Yet when he summoned everyone he could, he still couldn't overcome this mortal. If it weren't for the divine armor on his body that couldn't be destroyed by the power of the mortal world, he probably wouldn't have been able to hold on any longer. Moreover, perhaps it was an illusion, but Perseus always felt that during the intervals of this battle, Heracles' strength had grown by more than a fraction. Boom! Heracles, is he really human, or a monster wearing human skin? I admit that the former me may not have reached the true pinnacle of the demigod realm, but shouldn't there be a limit to this pinnacle? No, that's not right. Heracles, does this name mean the glory of Hera? The bronze sword collided with the iron club again, the strength akin to that of a titan numbing the arms beneath Perseus's divine armor. However, at this moment, a flash of insight crossed the mind of the son of the divine king, as he suddenly thought of something. This kind of homophonic name was not uncommon in the mortal realm, like the most commonly used alias of Zeus, Clonides, which meant son of Cronus, but he was not easily recognized by it. But such a name combined with such strength, coincidence was no longer a coincidence. Behind the faceplate, his expression was fickle, as Perseus now found himself caught in a dilemma. If the opponent actually had some connection with the heavenly empress, then he feared he might not be able to do anything to him. But things have come to this point, he couldn't possibly act as if nothing had happened, with some difficulty deciding in his heart. However, at this moment, Perseus suddenly felt the hall of valor which he was spiritually connected to tremble slightly. A very clear warning passed to his heart along the invisible connection, followed by a marker pointing to the far distance. Without waiting for him to follow the marker's guidance to search, the next moment, a vast and endless dirty force appeared within Perseus's sensory range. The ancient evil, star of death omens hurtled towards him at an incredible speed, aimed directly at his current location. Heracles, have you really conspired with an ancient evil being? Feeling the arrival of the omen of Death Star, a heroic spirit beside Perseus incredulously exclaimed. He had thought that this was just an accusation casually made by the son of the divine king, but it turned out to be true. No wonder he is the most famous hero in the mortal realm. Lord Perseus had long seen through this person's conspiracy. I was just worrying that with our strength we might not be able to contend with him, but now it seems Lord Perseus must have been prepared long ago. The corners of his mouth twitched behind the faceplate. Perseus remained silent, simply wielding his sword. What a joke, what preparations could he have had? And to be honest, now he doubted even more that Heracles had anything to do with the evil creatures. Though the heavenly Empress Hera was not a good person, and it was not beyond her to create a diversion and use evil beings to target others, she would definitely not bring an ancient evil creature to the Hall of Valor. So if the person before him indeed had a connection with the heavenly Empress, then the arrival of the omen of Death Star might really be an accident. However, this is good. I was just wondering how to end this. Now I don't have to think about it. So what if he really is connected to the heavenly Empress? There is still the ancient evil being to take the blame. So now the only thing I need to do is consider how to finally drive it out. To drive out, not to annihilate, because real ancient evil beings cannot be annihilated. Even the principal god with great divine power can only suppress them. Even suppressing the evil creatures is a consumption for the principal god's power, forcing them to constantly mobilize divine power and authority to prevent the regeneration of evil creatures. Chapter 975 Red Star Piercing the Sun. Whoosh! 2 clashes, 2 brief exchanges. Wielding the spear of Voctor, Heracles seemed to have gained some ground. Fragments of the red star's surface scattered, shattering the great stars drifting in the sea of stars. Yet in reality it was the ancient evil being that truly held the advantage. Beneath the earth, beside the abyss, the mother of crimson, who sows thousands of lives, does not claim supremacy with strength. The most distinct trait of her offspring that spread across all worlds, as seen in the eyes of ordinary gods, is their powerful undying nature, almost indistinguishable from the immortal essence of all gods. Thus, The two strikes from the great hero merely brushed the dust off its surface, not even close to inflicting harm. However, at this moment, right after these seemingly meaningless attacks, the star body gliding through space shifted its trajectory. While the change in angle was slight, for a star of its size and velocity, it was enough to throw it far off course. "It's trying to... Heracles, stop it now!" A cry of alarm rang out as the divine light of the spear of Voctor danced. Upon hearing this, Heracles gripped the divine artifact tightly, raising his spear in front, and the fierce edge cleaved open the void before him. Clang! The spear's shadow intersected with the great star, and compared to the massive star body, the body of the great hero was like mere dust. But divine power is not influenced by the difference in size, and under the sharp point of the spear, more large pieces of the star body shattered in the sky. A mountaintop on a great star was sheared off, forming a chasm, and nothing could withstand the sharpness of the spear of Voctor. Yet the omen of Death Star continued as if unfeeling. When Heracles unleashed the strength that could threaten it, it seemed to lose interest in him. As for its current target, it was the blood sun, sealed within the golden net on the horizon. Like a comet chasing the sun, the red star rolled across the sky, carrying divine power capable of smashing all things. As if it realized it could not capture Heracles, its prey in the short term, the omen of Death Star immediately switched targets. Around the blood sun, a vast and boundless golden net was holding it captive in the center. Could never break free on its own, but now there was external interference. The ancient evil being charged headlong, and its sudden change in trajectory seemed to have been noticed by the surrounding heroic spirits as well. Instantly, streaks of light and shadow intercepted toward the direction of the red star, similar fluctuations transmitted near the blood sun too. But these obstacles before the red star were like trying to stop a chariot with a mantis arm, not even able to delay its course for a moment. How can this be? Why did it suddenly think about crashing into the zodiac barrier? Even if it can disrupt the barrier's function, not to mention whether the sun could break free, it definitely can't come out. Heracles, stop it now. Perseus, I'm not through with you. Divine power, space transformation. A twinkle of silver light, and with In's help, the great hero traversed the vast space in one step. In just a brief moment, the pattern of the stars changed once and then again, and faced with this situation, Heracles did not hesitate to place himself again in the path that the ancient evil being must take. But this time the red star did not change its direction. Roar! Like a drill, in front of the unblockable sharpness of the spear of Voctor, the massive red star was easily pierced through. The earth's mantle was effortlessly ruptured, and strata-concealed flesh and blood were eroded by divine power. Even for the size of an ancient evil being directly penetrated through the star's axis was still no trivial matter. But while wielding borrowed divine power indiscriminately, the great hero didn't feel the slightest relief for his breakthrough. He pressed on, piercing through the star core, seemingly unstoppable. But what did it really mean for the vast star body itself? If one were to elevate their perspective at this time, they could only see a transient light passing straight through the red star before bursting out the other side. The momentum of the ancient evil being was thus briefly weakened, but its headlong rush remained unabated. Damn it! Stop! You damn thing, stop! Without the need to be urged, when Heracles penetrated the entire red star, the spear of Voctor erupted with a sharp whistle. The man followed the spear's path, the divine artifact sweeping a semicircle in the sky before whipping back towards the red star. With each passing moment, the spear of victory grew larger, and when it finally struck the star body of the omen of Death Star, it was already as immense as Mount of the Gods. Centuries of accumulated faith blazed up like flames, but the red star did not resist even such a blow. Boom! It was not just unimpeded, but even the force propelling it forward. The spear of victory was ultimately not another one of Athena's divine artifacts. Its power did not lie in obstructing others' assaults, but in offense as defense. However, even the most powerful attack could not instantly destroy the colossal star body of an ancient evil being, even if it had given up any resistance. So when it crossed over the only existence that could currently impede it, in front of the omen of Death Star, There was nothing left but the massive barrier. The great hero was momentarily stunned. Andy found it hard to believe, and the surrounding heroic spirits felt the same. No one expected that the ancient evil being's assault would take such a turn. Although all the evil creatures that invaded this place ultimately aimed to destroy the Hall of Valor and unleash the Blood Sun, almost none would choose to do it this way. Especially those ancient evil beings born after the fall of Typhon. They seemed to instinctively know what the Zodiac Barrier was for, and as soon as they approached, they would only be sealed along with it. However, whatever these things were, they are now a thing of the past. The choices made by the Red Star are already unobstructed and laid bare before everyone. Those heroic spirits who had originally been clearing evil creatures around the sunspot were no different than ants before it, merely turning to dust upon its frontal assault of the star body. Holding the divine artifact and feeling the frantic vibrations of the spear in his hand, Heracles also felt somewhat helpless at this moment. The strength of Andy and the divine artifact were indeed powerful, but facing such an injuring self to injure others type of evil being, he couldn't help but feel a bit at a loss. Don't bother, the Zodiac Barrier shouldn't be so easily broken through. It's just that what comes after might really give you all a headache. Whether this evil being gets suppressed along with the barrier or it releases a part of the sun's split form, it will probably spell a catastrophe beyond imagination. Muttering softly, the puppet also had no solution in the face of this scene. But there was something it couldn't figure out. The omen of Death Star was originally targeting Heracles. It must have sensed the aura of those great demon relics. So the question arises, why did it suddenly make such a move? Could it be because it couldn't take down this enemy in a short time? There was no answer, and now answers were irrelevant. As the Red Star moved across the sky and struck forth with boundless momentum, the Blood Sun, sealed by the barrier, seemed to have felt something. Just a century ago it had burst forth once, and now it erupted with an unprecedented powerful force, fiercely colliding with the barrier's wall. The waves of blood rose, bringing up the energy of the entire sea of stars with it. The next moment, the body of the omen of Death Star finally arrived leisurely, crashing into the thick golden net. Hum! Boom! The sea of stars fell silent for an instant, and then erupted with boundless light. In that moment, the net formed by the manifest Yellow Dao barrier began to shake madly, and with it, the entire zodiacal star domain was trembling incessantly. Boundless light, boundless heat. The divine power of the Blood Sun unhesitatingly struck against the barrier. And outside the barrier, from the very first moment of impact, the Red Star, already covered with cracks, was still moving forward. Crack, crack, crack! Little by little, bit by bit, until it had penetrated the entire star body. Centered on the core pierced by Heracles, cracks spread throughout the entire Red Star. An ancient evil being, who was powerful even in the realm of a true god, was critically hit in the blink of an eye, yet the omen of Death Star continued its advance as if it felt nothing. The part that had made contact with the barrier had turned to dust, and the rest was still splitting apart. At a certain moment, with a final tremor, the massive Red Star truly split open from the center. A cross-shaped fissure extended, dividing the giant star body into 4 parts. Boom! Tremendous rumbling rose and fell. Wave after wave of stronger tremors spread across the sea of stars. In this instant, the barrier that had isolated the zodiac domain from the outside world seemed to have shown some flaws, leaving traces in the sky. In the depths of the sea of stars, the ancient titans immediately cast their gaze upon the sight. In another hidden star domain, the Mother of Light gazed far towards the Blood Sun. Upon Mount Olympus, the divine king, who had just returned, could not help but look up, but soon he diverted his attention. Although there were anomalies, the zodiac barrier should still hold. Everything important at hand should take precedence. As for the rest, it could be discussed later. The changes in the sea of stars, even far down in the mortal world, were witnessed by scholars skilled in stargazing, who saw this indescribable spectacle. Chapter 976. Contention. All right, the incident is over, and in the end, we weren't able to lend much help. The ancient evil being still attacked the seal, fortunately without more serious consequences occurring. However, Although the omen of Death Star might not be dead, it's certainly crippled. But the influence it has caused is likely a long-lasting disaster. You guys probably have your hands full now. Heracles, hurry up and wrap up whatever you need to do. I fear it won't be long before things get busy around here. Shaking his head with a smile, Andy did not truly care much about the shock brought by the ancient evil being. After all, the barrier had not yet crumbled, and to him that was already sufficient. By the way, Nikki, do you have any thoughts about that guy called Perseus over there? Speaking of which, he actually seems quite capable. You see, before even the incident is over, he's already figured out how to handle it. Humph. I know, I heard what he's saying. There's a conflict between you two, huh? The descendants of Zeus are all like this. Well, then you all go resolve it on your own. With a snort, the divine artifact vibrated slightly. A sharpness flickered at its tip, as if it wanted to poke a hole in the body of the son of the divine king over there. But after hesitating for a moment, Nikki still gave up on this tempting idea. Although she had long found Perseus disagreeable, a human hero who came to deal with the heroic spirits, yet neglecting his proper duties day after day. In the past, they nevertheless managed to perform their primary roles to some extent, and considering the various support that the Olympus line provided to the Hall of Valor in the mortal realm, she had been lenient and let it slide. But what Nikki did not expect at all was that now, even in the guardianship of the star domain, Perseus dared to be so neglectful of his duty. If the heroic spirit guard stationed on the edge of the star domain had issued a warning earlier, she would have had time to arrive first and construct a stronger barricade around the Hall of Valor to prevent the intrusion of the ancient evil being, rather than discovering it too late and watching the omen of Death Star approach the barrier firsthand, misusing public resources and failing to prioritize properly. If it had been someone else who made such a mistake, Nikki would have already thrust her spear into them, even erasing their soul imprints from the Hall of Valor. However, now the one causing the consequences is Perseus. So despite her discomfort, Nikki did not punish him directly. It's so annoying, but after all, I'm just a weapon. Even if we have to execute the son of the God King, it should be Athena who issues the order. But then again, it seems they have been fighting amongst themselves before, so if that's the case, the divine artifact chimed softly, tracing an arc in midair, and Nikki felt a bit uncomfortable. She circled around Heracles and made a silent decision in her heart. The conflicts between you have nothing to do with me. After all, heroic spirits can't die. However, due to Perseus's mistakes, as the custodian of the Hall of Valor, I temporarily strip him of the right to use Perseus. All right, I'm off to check the barrier. Anyway, you are all sons of Zeus. No matter how you fight amongst yourselves, he can hardly say anything wrong about it. Having made her decision, the spear of Voctor sounded again, this time with a much lighter tone. Nikki immediately transformed into a streak of light, heading towards the vicinity of the shattered brown star, taking away the right to use Perseus. Huh? That's not a bad move. Without that divine armor, Perseus is no match for you. Watching Nikki's departing figure, the marionette nodded. It seems, just as he thought, this weapon girl under the command of the goddess of wisdom has no particular affection towards Olympus. How about it? Have you figured out how to deal with them? Of course. We have no personal grievances, but he once persecuted a goddess in the mortal realm who had done no wrong, and later sent his minions to trouble me. These numerous matters are indeed the grudges he has created with his own hands. In that case, let him become a true heroic spirit. Even though heroic spirits don't die, he no longer needs to keep the status of a mortal demigod. Without the divine armor Perseus's strength was no longer capable of stopping him, so Heracles plainly expressed his intentions. As a son of the God King, the other was one of the few granted eternal life as a heroic spirit while still alive, and that is also why he's not completely controlled by the Hall of Valor, still relying on perhaps even greater power. And even now, he has not given up on this idea, using the divine power that had not yet dissipated from his body. The great hero like Andy and Nikki had been able to hear the noises over there. At this moment, Perseus was currently looking for a culprit for this sudden calamity, utterly unsuspecting that this outsider, who attacked the patrolling troops and then took the opportunity to strike was the perfect scapegoat. Heracles didn't care whether he was blamed or not, but his antipathy towards the other's attitude was indeed growing. Heroes from myth are just like this. The great hero decided to destroy the other's physical body, making him a true heroic spirit, henceforth dedicated to exterminating evil creatures, rather than committing more mistakes for his own purposes. By the way, Lord Andy, Perseus was not a difficult opponent, but before taking action, Heracles seemed to remember something. He hadn't yet had time to examine that streak of light that flew towards him. That halo seemed to have entered a relic left by some demon, and it was unknown what it had become now. Chapter 977. Contention_2. Don't rush, Heracles. I know what you're about to say, but let's wait until we get back. I have already faintly sensed it. A strong aura of divine power is approaching the zodiacal star domain. If nothing unexpected happens, it is Ether, the god of heavenly light. His divine power is stronger than mine. He is an ancient deity born at the end of the First Era. When he was born, he even witnessed the existence of the Lord of the Sky, and I'm no match for him. If you don't want more trouble, then hurry up. Zeus is looking for a scapegoat for this sudden disaster, and there's no doubt, this provocative attacker of the patrol troops, then, taking the opportunity to strike, the outsider is the perfect scapegoat. Heracles doesn't care about being blamed, but he is indeed more repulsed by the attitude of the other party. In the myths, heroes are just so. The great hero decides to destroy the opponent's body, making him a true heroic spirit, from then on to eradicate evil creatures as his duty, instead of committing more mistakes for his own purposes. Right, Lord Andy. Perseus is not a formidable opponent, but before taking action, Heracles seemed to think of something. The stream of light that flew towards him earlier, he hadn't had time to examine it. That halo seemed to have entered some demon's relic, and it's unknown what it has turned into now. Don't rush, Heracles. I know what you're about to say, but let's wait until we get back. I have already faintly sensed it. A strong aura of divine power is approaching the zodiacal star domain. If nothing unexpected happens, it is Ether, the god of heavenly light. His divine power is stronger than mine. He is an ancient deity born at the end of the First Era. When he was born, he even witnessed the existence of the Lord of the Sky, and I'm no match for him. If you don't want more trouble, then hurry up. All right, the accident is seemingly over. We didn't help much in the end. The ancient evil being still attacked the seal. Thankfully, no more severe consequences occurred. But although the omen of Death Star is not dead, it's crippled. The impact it caused has far-reaching consequences. You guys will probably be busy. Heracles, take the time to wrap up your affairs. It won't be long before this place becomes bustling. Shaking his head with a smile, Andy actually didn't care much about the shock brought by the ancient evil being. Anyway, since the barrier hasn't dissolved, for him that was enough already. Right, Nikki, what do you think about that guy called Perseus over there? Speaking of which, he is quite capable. You see, the matter isn't even concluded yet, but he has already thought about how to explain himself. Humph. I know. I can hear what he's saying. You have some disagreements between you, descendants of Zeus are just like this. Then just go and settle it yourselves. With a light snort, the divine artifact slightly hummed. A hint of sharpness flashed at the tip, seemingly puncturing a hole in the son of Divine King's body over there. But after a moment of hesitation, Nikki gave up on this tempting idea. After all, she has long disliked Perseus, who is clearly a human hero here to deal with heroic spirit, yet mismanages his duties daily, putting his main tasks aside. But in the past, they could still perform their duties somewhat. Considering the various supports provided by the Olympus lineage in the mortal realm for the Hall of Valor, she let it slide. However, what Nikki never expected was that now even the guards of the star domain, Perseus dared to so neglect his duty. If the heroic spirit guard stationed at the edge of the star domain had issued a warning earlier, she could have arrived first to build a stronger barrier centered around the Hall of Valor, blocking the invasion of the ancient evil being, instead of discovering it when it was already before her, then just watching helplessly as the omen of Death Star approached the barrier. public tool for private use, misjudging priorities. If it had been someone else committing this mistake, Nikki would have thrust her spear already, even erasing their soul mark in the Hall of Valor. But the person who caused the consequences now was Perseus. Thus, even though she was very uncomfortable, Nikki did not directly punish. How annoying! But I am just a weapon after all. Even if the son of the divine king is to be killed, it should be Athena who gives the order. But then again, they seem to have been fighting among themselves previously, so in that case, the divine artifact hummed softly, tracing an arc in midair. Nikki felt a bit uneasy. She circled around Heracles, and the victory goddess made a silent decision. The conflicts between you have nothing to do with me. After all, heroic spirits do not die. However, considering Perseus's mistake, in my capacity as the custodian of the Hall of Valor, I am temporarily revoking his right to use Perseus. All right, I am going to check the barrier. Since you are all sons of Zeus, how you fight amongst yourselves is none of his concern. With the decision made, the spear of Voctor hummed again. This time the sound was much lighter. Nikki immediately transformed into a streak of flowing light, heading towards the vicinity of the shattered brown star. Revoking the usage rights of Perseus, that's actually a good move. Without that divine armor, Perseus is no match for you. Watching Nikki's departing figure, the puppet nodded. It seemed as he thought, this mistress of arms under the goddess of wisdom also held no fondness for Olympus. How about it? Have you figured out how to deal with them? Of course. We have no personal grievances, but he has persecuted a goddess who had done no wrong in the mortal realm, then sent his subordinates to trouble me afterward. These deeds were all personally orchestrated by him. In that case, let him become a true heroic spirit. Although heroic spirits do not die, he need not retain the status of a mortal demigod either. Without the divine armor, Perseus could no longer obstruct him, so Heracles plainly spoke his intentions. As a son of the divine king, he is one of the few who was granted eternal life as a heroic spirit while still alive. This also why he is not completely subject to the Hall of Valor, still contemplating perhaps a stronger force to rely on. Even now, he has not given up on this idea. Using the divine power lingering on him, the great hero could, like Andy and Nikki, hear the disturbance from the other side. At this moment, Perseus was looking for a scapegoat for this sudden calamity, completely unaware that this aggressor, who seized the opportunity to strike their patrol team, is actually the perfect scapegoat. Heracles did not care about being blamed, but he was indeed even more repulsed by the other party's attitude. Thus, the legendary hero decided to destroy the other party's physical body, making him a true heroic spirit, henceforth eradicating evil creatures, not committing more wrongs for his own purposes. By the way, Lord Andy, Perseus is not a difficult opponent, but before taking action, Heracles seemed to recall something. The streak of light that had flown towards him earlier had not been examined yet. That halo seemed to have entered into a relic of a demon. It's unclear what it has transformed into now. Don't rush, Heracles. I know what you're about to say, but let's wait until we return. I have already faintly sensed it. A strong divine power is approaching the zodiacal star domain. If there are no surprises, it is the god of Heavenly Father Ether. His divine power is stronger than mine. He is an ancient deity born at the end of the first epoch. He even witnessed the existence of the Lord of the Sky. I am no match for him. If you don't want more trouble, then quickly. Chapter 978 Exchange. Within the barrier, on the dark side of the sun, as the crimson shade in the palm carrying the information was fully accepted by Helios, the thing it hid beneath began to finally show a hint of clue. That was a 7-segmented weevil emitting starlight all over its body, with rings hooked tail to head, nestling on its surface one by one. In the god of sun's perception, the weevil's aura was not particularly strong. A mere branch from the mother tree was enough to suppress all inferior to the supreme divine power of the Great Ones. This tiny creature of starlight was even less potent than those spirit realm star gods in charge of the zodiac domain. Yet, deep atop the sun, Helios deeply knew this was only the surface. Under the mother tree's branches' blessing, The true essence of the seven-segmented weevil unfolded before him, a corner of the iceberg, teetering between existence and obliteration, lingering in the threshold of presence and absence. Compared to any being that witnesses the mother tree's true form, internally applauding it as perfection of life, seeing the essence of the seven-segmented weevil, Helios felt as if he saw the void of a world yet to be birthed. His expression uncertain, and without a doubt, although not knowing where the counterpart's true form lay, or how mighty its power was, this was most definitely another terrifying existence on par with the mother of flesh. After all, for all deities in the world, amassing strength was just a matter of time, but elevating one's status and authority is the true key, troubling all gods, preventing them from advancing. Furthermore, with the mother tree being sealed by the present order outside of the mortal realm for thousands of years, comparing the two, Helios is unsurprised. The ability to infiltrate the present seals with a smidgen of power is already a terrifying technique, unattainable even for the primordial deity. Therefore, no matter how much of the counterpart has emerged, the god of sun must treat this matter with the utmost seriousness. Sigh. So it is. The reason for today's events is that your excellency wishes to meet with me. So the great mother of crimson expended such a cost to bring you here. In that case, I have been impolite. I am Helios, Chaos's god of sun. May I inquire how to address your excellency? Amon, you can call me Amon. After all, in your world, I have never held any title. Of course, if you have any other names, that's fine too. In the end, a name is just a symbol. Spoke softly. The crimson shadow dissolved. The crystal-clear seven-segmented weevil spun silk threads woven from starlight. Then, out of thin air, a cocoon formed. In front of Helios, time seemed to accelerate momentarily, and in just a brief moment, the cocoon split, and another Amon walked out slowly. Stepping onto the alien realm's sun, Amon felt its liquid-like touch, feeling somewhat novel for a while. Unlike Hemenu, who possesses purification, flames, rebirth, cycle, and even parts of life, time, and various authorities, Chaos's sun was merely pure light and heat, as well as the mightiest amongst the vast star domain light entities. Considering the concepts and overall proportion in the world, there's no meaning in comparing the two. Still, despite such a vast difference in world scales, Hemenu's sun might not be that much stronger. This is the variance of worlds. I must also thank those heroic spirits for their desperate resistance, allowing the omen of Death Star to erode quite a bit of the star cluster's power during the process. Otherwise, without them, I might have found it rather difficult to shape a body that can walk upon the sun. However, Lord Helios, while most of what you've just said is correct, there is a slight issue. The omen of Death Star didn't crash into the Yellow Dao barrier in a desperate move just to get me in here. In fact, with your cooperation, I entirely had other ways to bypass this barrier composed of the sun's power. At most, I just hitched a ride, and it was your master who truly wished for its death, while I merely offered an insignificant help. He's not my master. I merely accepted his power. We are equal collaborators. The mother of crimson strength is indeed beyond my comparison, but she also cannot direct enter the mortal realm herself. Frowning slightly, correcting Amon on the so-called master notion upon hearing it, Helios couldn't help but speak out. Regarding why the omen of Death Star acted so rampantly, after seeing the mother tree's shadow and Amon, Helios had already stopped caring. After all, inside lies only another hidden agenda of the outer god's conspiracy. The god of sun doesn't care for these secrets. It had no relation to him nor this sealed sun. Yet, being called master by Amon, he simply couldn't accept it whatsoever. Lord Amon, as an innate deity, a son of the world, we are born immortal. No one can ever be our master. Neither in the past, nor now, nor will there be in the future. For a moment speechless, looking at Helios, who even though embodied a blood tree, but still expressed earnest fervor, Amon simply nodded in acceptance. He almost forgot. Chapter 979, Before the Abyss. I can share with you my memories and understanding of the sun, allowing you to reorganize the laws of the sun. Although it may not entirely match the inherent order of chaos, as long as it brings about beneficial changes, you can gradually reverse the current situation. The zodiacal star domain, though the essence of the starry sky, ultimately exists because of the sun. If you can change and sublimate the essence of the sun, this will not only help you prevent them from plundering your power, but even the power of the zodiacal star domain itself might be absorbed by you in return. He smiled as he spoke, and though the last part seemed a bit far-fetched, after all, Amon didn't believe Helios could easily reach that step. The earlier part was no lie. With his current preliminary understanding of the order of chaos, this indeed would benefit the other party in seizing back control of the sun. A desire flashed in his eyes. Helios remained silent, but his heart was gradually leaning towards something. Amon was right. For deities of chaos, expanding the concept of godhood, extending new domains, and sorting out their divine authority could indeed make them favored by the world, thereby increasing their fundamental strength. True gods with traits of territorial gods expand their domains, such as rights over the ocean and the star domain, based on similar logic. It was just that they were more often vying for the existing concepts of the world, whereas what Amon spoke of was an incremental expansion of the concept of the sun, which didn't require battling others. However, for thousands of years, the reason why all gods would rather seek faith than broaden their godhood is also natural. Since the beginning of creation until now, apart from ancient deities who followed the guidance of their godhood under the guidance of destiny to refine concepts, there has been no other being that could expand the concept of their godhood alone. The goddess of law exiled chaos, Lord of the sky evolved the initial patriarchy, and even the all-gods created humans, these intelligent beings. These actions, seemingly initiated by the deities themselves, were actually just inevitabilities under the guidance of destiny. Just as humans, no matter how extravagant and fanciful their imagination, can never imagine things completely unrelated to everything they have experienced in their past lives, so the deities born in the chaos world naturally cannot expand into concepts not held by chaos itself. As for making minimal improvements and expansions on already existing concepts, that may also be a path. But alas, even if one could gain power through this method, the actual growth is negligible. After all, the godhood of the gods comes from the world, which is already quite complete. Even if some amendments can be made, it's essentially like finding the 101st solution to a problem that already has 100 solutions, where the difficulty is extremely high and the increase is practically negligible. Thus, almost no deity would bother with this anymore. Rather than spending time on these aspects, they would instead wait for the natural growth of the world's volume. At this moment, Amon's suggestion was undoubtedly like a light in the darkness, illuminating a new path outside the current road. Lord Amon, forgive my candor. Whether it's you or the great Mother of Crimson, both of your powers are indisputable, perhaps even challenging for the mightiest beings of chaos to compare. But since you both ultimately arrived here, I presume that the condition of the world where you originated must be rather dire. Feeling somewhat excited, Helios wanted to agree. However, as emotions surged in his heart, he chose to stabilize himself first. No matter how you put it, he was a being who had been incarcerated twice. 2 epochs had passed, and his patience had increased accordingly. As far as I am aware, in recent years, the origin of chaos has risen not just once. The Earth, the star domain, everything in the world is growing stronger. If I'm not mistaken, the source of the rise in the world's source power is a corpse from an alien realm. So Lord Amon, while the sun of the alien realm might be glorious, if it has already become part of this world, then I'm afraid it would be of no use to me. It won't be, Lord Helios. I can assure you that our world's sun has not yet merged into this world. On this point, my perception will not be wrong, so you can be assured. His lips slightly curved, Amon leaned forward, gazing at Helios under the crystal giant tree. No choice, last time his attempt at probing had been terminated by that witch, so before really doing something, he had to try another way of probing. Direct fishing, let the willing ones bite. He was only responsible for baiting. Whether Helios was a fish or a bigger bait, that would depend on his own luck. After all, for Amon, he just wanted to find out if there were any fish here, whether he needed to be more cautious, not really wanting to catch something. Epitomizing it, the roles of the hunter and the prey could always switch unexpectedly. At least for now, Amon was not planning to personally enter the game. So, Lord Helios, will you accept my goodwill? Of course I accept. After pondering for a moment and looking at Amon's smiling face, Helios finally gave his answer. Chapter 980. Before the Abyss _2. Among the gods, no one is willing to perform charity for others, at least not the outer god before him. Just by looking at this face, Helios was certain that the other party had ulterior motives. The information of the alien realm sun, not yet integrated into chaos. Putting these two messages together, one can figure out that there is definitely a pitfall. However, Helios was also sure that even if he continued to ask, he would not get a real answer from Amon's mouth. After all, he is an outer god. Moreover, the true god of lies in Chaos World is unknown. But the world is never short of deceit. Seriously speaking, the Blood Mother Tree's help to himself is also coveting the power of the sun. But under the supreme power of chaos, it ultimately cannot erode his own thoughts. It's not scary to be used by others, but it is scary when no one wants to use you. Since the ancient times of allying with Cronus, and then replacing his father to drive the sun, Helios understood this point. For millions of years, he has found more than one new master for himself. 2 generations of divine kings, Earth Mother Gaia, 2 outer gods. It's not scary to be used by others, but it is scary when no one wants to use you. Since the ancient times of allying with Cronus, and then replacing his father to drive the sun, Helios understood this point. For millions of years, he has found more than one new master for himself. 2 generations of divine kings, Earth Mother Gaia, 2 outer gods. I can give you my memories and understanding of the sun, allowing you to reorganize the laws of the sun. Although it may not completely fit the inherent order of chaos, as long as it can bring about sufficient positive changes, you can gradually turn the current situation around. The zodiacal star domain is indeed the essence of the starry sky, but after all, the zodiac came only after the existence of the sun. If you can use this to change and sublimate the essence of the sun, it would not only help you prevent them from plundering your strength, but you might even be able to absorb the power of the zodiacal star domain itself. He smiled as he spoke, although the last part seemed a bit promising. After all, Amon did not think Helios could successfully reach that step, but he did not lie in the previous content. With his current initial understanding of the order of chaos, it would indeed be beneficial for the other party to regain control of the sun. A glimpse of desire flashed in his eyes. Helios remained silent, but his heart was gradually leaning towards it. What Amon said was right, for the gods of chaos, widening the concept of godhood, expanding new domains, and even sorting out their own divine authority, such actions could indeed make them favored by the world and thereby increase their fundamental strength. True gods with some territorial deity attributes expand their domain by increasing powers like those of the ocean and star domain, which also follows this logic. However, they are more about stock competition of already some conceived ideas in the world, while what Amon spoke of includes the incremental expansion of the concept of the sun, the former requiring combat with others, the latter does not. However, for thousands of years, the reason why gods would rather seek faith than widen their godhood also has its reasons. From the beginning of creation until now, almost except for the ancient era following the guidance of godhood, under the guidance of destiny to perfect concepts of deities, there has been nothing else able to expand godhood concepts on their own. The goddess of law drove chaos out of the present, the lord of the sky evolved the initial father's rights, and even the all-gods created humans, this intelligent life form. These actions seem like the behaviors of deities themselves, but in reality, they are a mere inevitability under the guidance of fate. Just as the imagination of humans, however wonderful and fantastical, definitely cannot imagine things totally unrelated to everything they've seen in their past lives, so 2 gods born in the chaos world naturally cannot expand concepts that chaos itself does not have. As for making some improvements and expansions on their own existing concepts, this might also be a pathway. However, unfortunately, even if one could gain strength through this method, the actual growth is minuscule. After all, the godhood of the gods comes from the world, and it is already quite complete. Even if modifications are possible, it's akin to finding the 101st solution to a problem that originally had 100 solutions. Not only is the difficulty absurdly high, but the increment is almost negligible. Thus, almost no deities would do this sort of thing again. They would rather spend their time waiting for the natural rise of the world's magnitude. Until this moment, Amon's suggestion was undoubtedly like a lamp in the darkness, illuminating a new path beyond the original road. Amon, forgive my bluntness. Whether it's yourself or the great mother of Crimson, your strength is without doubt, perhaps even unmatched by the most powerful beings in chaos. However, since the two of you have ultimately come to us, I fear that the situation in the world of your origin must be quite dire indeed. Helios was somewhat excited and wanted to agree. However, as emotions welled up inside him, he chose to stabilize himself first. After all, he had been in the prison twice. 2 eras had passed, and his patience had increased accordingly. As far as I know, in recent years, the origin of chaos has risen significantly more than once. The earth, the starry sky, and all things in the world are strengthening. If I'm not mistaken, the rise in the world source power must be from the corpses coming from the alien realm. Therefore, Amon, as wonderful as the sun of the alien realm is, if it has already become a part of this world, then it's probably of no use to me. It won't be, Lord Helios. I can assure you that the sun of our world hasn't merged with this world. On this point, my perception is infallible, so you can rest assured about this. Amon slightly curled up the corners of his mouth, leaned forward slightly, and made eye contact with Helios under the crystal giant tree. There was no way around it. Last time his own probing was interrupted by the witch before it even started, so before doing something real, he had to try another way. Straight hook fishing, whosoever is willing shall bite. He was only responsible for setting the bait. Whether Helios was the fish or a bigger bait was down to his own fortune. After all, for Amon, he just wanted to know if there were fish here, whether he needed to be more cautious, not really to catch something. After all, the positions of the prey and hunter can inadvertently switch. At least for now, Amon had no plans to personally join the game. So, Lord Helios, do you accept my goodwill? Of course I accept. After pondering for a moment, seeing Amon's smiling face, Helios finally gave his answer. Among gods, no one wants to offer charity to others, at least this outer god doesn't seem like that kind of entity. Just looking at that face, Helios confirmed that the other party definitely had ulterior motives. The information of the alien realm's sun confirmed that it hasn't merged into chaos. Putting these two pieces of information together, one could see that there must be a trap in there. However, Helios was also sure that even if he continued to ask, he would not get the true answer from Amon. After all, it's an outer god. Moreover, the real god of lies and chaos is obscure, but the world never lacks deceit. Seriously speaking, the Blood Mother Tree's help was also coveting the power of the sun, but under the supreme power of chaos, it ultimately couldn't erode his thoughts. Being used by someone isn't frightening. What's frightening is if no one wants to use you. From the ancient times, aligning himself with Cronus and then replacing his father to drive the sun, Helios understood this point. Over millions of years, he had found more than one master for himself. 2 divine kings, Earth Mother Gaia, 2 outer gods. Chapter 981. Entering and burning body explosion. Wandering along the banks of the Styx River for a while, Zeus stopped insisting when he saw it was fruitless. The Styx could hide from him momentarily, but not for eternity. As long as the Styx River continued to flow over the endless gray soil, they would eventually become fully integrated into his divine court. Taking flight, Zeus discerned his direction roughly. To avoid drawing the attention of the ancient serpent that had troubled him on several occasions, the divine king had scarcely left any trace of great divine power in this fleshly incarnation. On this journey into another's territory, the magnitude of power could not dictate the outcome. If not for ensuring normal passage through the chaotic abyss, Zeus would not even consider preserving the strength of a true god for himself. Whoosh! He advanced without nearing the core of the underworld. The divine king traveled along the perimeter, and before long the distinct aura of the abyss became more pronounced. Zeus vaguely saw a well-prepared team waiting there. The majority of them were no different from those he had seen on the surface, except the average quality was significantly stronger. Only the leader emitted a distinct deity aura, and when Zeus noticed her, she turned to look at the approaching divine king. After a brief assessment, the woman in the distance had a tall figure with a hidden killing intent. Even though it was their first meeting, Zeus felt as if he was seeing an enhanced version of Hera. Not an enhancement of power, but a doubling down on the strength of character and a vindictive nature. After all, the personality of the heavenly empress might be more limited to the lovers of the divine king, whereas this one before him did not have so many constraints. Is this the five-colored dragon mother that Erebus spoke of, the guardian of the golden apple tree, seemingly born from his flesh? But this aura, yet another being resembling a demon more than a deity. With surprise in his heart, before today, Zeus had speculated that she was a goddess presiding over some authority. But now, having witnessed her in person, he realized his previous thoughts might have been overreaching. She wasn't a deity who prioritized authority. In his perception, her power seemed more derived from her body and bloodline. If she did have any godhood, it was possibly represented by her bloodline's race. But this strength didn't seem like something a chaos deity could possess. Without a doubt, she must be a visitor from an alien realm, at least one of the outcomes of Erebus's explorations into the matter. You're late. A deity from Olympus. What? Is this how your divine king instructs you to conduct affairs? Her voice carried from afar, and her eyes had unknowingly shifted into vertical pupils as the dragon mother stared intently at the swiftly approaching figure. From the conversation, it was evident she didn't know the identity of the newcomer. In response to the dragon mother's questioning, Zeus merely smiled. Indeed, she should not know him, as he had not only changed the appearance of his incarnate flesh to avoid drawing attention, but even those accompanying him on this journey were unaware of his identity as the divine king. In their eyes, this was just a routine collaboration with the Olympian pantheon of the mortal realm, the visitor being an inconspicuous deity. But their target was a bit special. After all, the Abyss Land is not somewhere fitting for exploration. My apologies for the delay on the road, but for deities, this shouldn't be a big deal, right? First time meeting ancestor of the five-colored evil dragon. I'm Clonides, tasked by the divine king to accompany you into the abyss. As you see, landing beside the dragon mother, Zeus spoke with a smile. Five-colored dragon mother, if she indeed originated from the flesh of the Lord of Darkness, if they were to have offspring, would they be godlike or dragon-like? If godlike, does that imply that the bloodline of the divine king is even more dominant than that of the primordial gods? Dismissing the useless thoughts from his mind, Zeus noticed her dangerous gaze coming down. Cough, cough. Although I'm somewhat late, it's still not too late. Just not sure how I should address the esteemed five-colored dragon mother? No need. Olympus already has a Moanda, which isn't for me. After this mission, we may not have the chance to see each other again. With a slight shake of her head and a slight narrowing of her eyes, the dragon mother didn't notice anything amiss about Zeus. She simply tapped the ground lightly, and a set of thick, expansive dragon wings unfolded from her back. Chapter 982. Lord and the Path of Bloodline. Flames and shadows, mixed with chaos, struck directly at the sensibilities of all creatures. In the eyes of Zeus, the structure of the abyssal creature before him seemed like a weapon born for battle. Its stature was several times that of a human, yet not so large as to be cumbersome. Its robust body burned with undying flames, and blood that corroded stone dripped from wounds made by dragon claws. The curved demon's horn shimmered with a cold light, but in the view of the divine king, it was not a weapon for attacking enemies, rather a device to enhance control over the elements. After all, there was no magic net in the abyss, so if these native life forms did not want to control the omnipresent elemental power with their own chaotic and barren spiritual power, it would be best to have something to help amplify their bloodlines calling to the elements. Behind it, there was also a pair of vast wings. However, Zeus could equally discern that they were not meant for flight through wing beating. Another path of bloodline, huh? Such a path may not necessarily be a good thing, but this is the abyss, so for these demons it doesn't really matter all too much. Since the Dragon Mother had already made her move, Zeus didn't say much more. He just took the opportunity to explore the source of the abyssal creature's life force. And without a doubt, both the strength and life form of this abyss demigod were closely tied to its bloodline. However, such a path should also stop short of a true god, so the Divine King wasn't too concerned. As for the desperate struggle of this abyssal creature at this moment, he cared even less. They are officially called demons, which seems quite apartment. Nodding silently, watching the surge of elemental power from the body of the half-demon, Zeus couldn't help but comment inwardly. Although he did not understand the underlying principle, this explosive secret technique was truly extraordinary. In just a short period of time, its aura had more than doubled, and even to a true god, it still did not seem much. Wait! It doesn't seem to be erupting. Roar! His expression changed suddenly, and for some reason, the scene before him felt somewhat familiar. Similarly suppressed, similarly hopeless for victory, it seemed that a millennium ago, another being had done something similar. On the blood-red earth below, a deep roar mixed with some unfamiliar language as the wing-broken demon looked up at the sky. Looking at the Dragon Queen and Zeus, the flame demon felt the aura that did not belong in the abyss, and even with the strength gap as vast as mountains and seas, its eyes only held ferocity and the intent to kill. Outsiders, helpers of the devil, die with me. Type, spell, burning body explosion. Boom! In an instant, it was as if a mini-sun had risen from the ground, with divine flames sweeping across hundreds of miles. The low mountain was leveled, the great rumblings echoing far and wide, and along with the aura of the half-god flame demon, faint traces of dimensional strength spread with the explosion. The continuous explosions didn't show any sign of stopping. At that moment, Zeus retreated without any hesitation. Just like Typhon, another madman who would not hesitate to fight to the death at a moment's notice, completely unaware of the situation. But the power of this self-destruction went beyond Zeus's imagination. With the slight addition of dimensional strength, the flame demon's self-destruction reached the realm of the deities. His expression turned grim. Zeus quickly recognized the source of this power. Much like the domain of a territorial god, this demon likely received recognition from the myriad abyss planes and ruled a territory within this layer of the domain. While the small part of a complete dimension was insignificant enough not to allow him to advance further, the self-destruction indeed bridged the gap considerably, catching both the Divine King and Dragon Mother off guard. Presumptuous! Get down! Bang! The flames continued to burn and spread. Yet in the next moment, the Dragon Mother seemed finally enraged. The dragon wings vibrated, invisible pressure cleansing the area. Under the burst of strength from the Dragon Mother, the spreading flames were immediately suppressed. The blood-red earth trembled slightly and then slowly returned to calm. After a while, the effects of the flame demon's self-destruction were quelled, leaving only Zeus and the Dragon Mother suspended in the air. Five-colored Dragon Mother, I have already warned you, do not be impulsive. This is not a world dominated by order. Violence and slaughter cannot solve problems. Not all beings will be afraid of your intimidation. Clearly, the chaotic environment of Tartarus will not produce creatures like those in the mortal realm. Taking a deep breath, Zeus wondered if such a commotion was a big deal. But fortunately, there had been no signs of local divine-level beings approaching until now. He was inclined to scold this underling of the Lord of Darkness, but considering that they still had to cooperate for a while, he suppressed the anger in his heart. Its self-destruction was the outcome. If you continue like this, I don't think we can go on with our mission together. At your pace, it won't be long before we attract local divine beings, or even more powerful entities. There won't be a second time. Speaking indifferently, the dragon-transformed arm returned to normal. For some reason, in contrast to Zeus, who was clearly suppressing his anger, the Dragon Mother, who had just faced defeat, appeared unexpectedly calm. She looked at the spot where the flame demon had just exploded, her gaze inquisitive, and even among them, one could see a hint of an imperceptible smile. Chapter 983. Lord and the path of bloodline _2. Zeus retreated without any hesitation. Another madman just like Typhon, ready to fight to death at the drop of a hat, with no consideration of the appropriate action at the right time. Yet, the power of this self-destruction far exceeded Zeus's imagination. With the enhancement of the interfacial elemental power, the self-destruction of the flame demon had reached the realm of a deity. Zeus's face turned sour as he quickly recognized the source of this power. It was as if this demon had been acknowledged by the myriad abyss planes, becoming the ruler of a territory within this layer of interface. Even though a complete interface is trivial and not enough for further advancement, the self-destruction undoubtedly bridged the gap to such an extent that it took both the Divine King and the Dragon Mother by surprise. Presumptuous! Go down! Boom! The flames were still burning, spreading. Yet in the next instant, the Dragon Mother seemed to finally be enraged. Her dragon wings vibrated, and an invisible pressure swept the land. Under the Dragon Mother's erupting strength, the spreading flames were immediately suppressed. The blood-red earth trembled slightly and then returned to calm. After a while, the effects of the flame demon's self-destruction were quelled, leaving only Zeus and the Dragon Mother suspended in the air. Five-colored Dragon Mother, I've already advised you not to be impulsive. This is not a world dominated by order. Violence and slaughter cannot solve problems, and not all beings will be frightened by your threats. Obviously, the chaotic environment of Tartarus will not produce creatures like those in the mortal realm. Taking a deep breath, Zeus didn't know if the commotion was significant, but fortunately, there were no signs of any local divine-level beings approaching so far. He wanted to berate the minion of the Lord of Darkness, but considering they needed to collaborate for a while, he suppressed his anger. Its self-destruction is the consequence. If you continue like this, I don't think our mission can proceed together. By your methods, it won't take long before we attract the local divine beings, even more powerful ones. There won't be a second time. She interrupted lightly, her dragon-transformed arm returning to its original form. For some reason, despite facing failure, the Dragon Mother appeared surprisingly calm compared to Zeus, who was obviously holding back his anger. She looked at the site where the flame demon had just self-destructed, with a hint of inquiry in her gaze, and even a faint and imperceptible smile. Flames and shadows, mixed with chaos and a spiritual light that strikes directly at the rationality of mortals. In Zeus's eyes, the structure of this abyssal creature seemed like a weapon born for battle. Taller than humans by several times, yet not so large as to impede flexibility. Its robust physique was aflame with unquenchable fire, and from the wounds torn by dragon claws dripped blood plasma that corroded rocks. The curved demon's horn shimmered with a cold light, but in the Divine King's view, they were not weapons for attacking enemies, but rather devices that amplified control over the elements. After all, without the presence of a magic net in the abyss, these native beings, if they did not want to control the omnipresent elemental power with their chaotic and barren spiritual power, would do well to have something to help enhance the call of their bloodline to the elements. Behind it, there were also a pair of broad wings. However, Zeus could tell that it probably did not rely on flapping to fly. Another path of bloodline, perhaps not a good thing, but this is the abyss, so it doesn't really matter to these demons. Since the Dragon Mother had already taken action, Zeus didn't say much but took the opportunity to explore the source of the abyssal life force. And without a doubt, the strength and life form of this abyss demigod was closely tied to bloodline. However, such a path would likely stop short of a true god, so the Divine King did not pay too much attention. As for the current desperate struggle of this abyssal being, he cared even less. Their official name seems to be Demon, quite fitting indeed. Nodding to himself, watching the elemental fluctuations surge on that demigod demon, Zeus made a mental note. Although unaware of the principles, such an explosive secret technique was truly remarkable. In just a short time, its aura had more than doubled, which still was not enough to pose a threat to a true god. Wait! It doesn't seem to be simply erupting. Roar! His complexion changed suddenly, and for some reason, the scene before Zeus felt vaguely familiar. like having been suppressed, like having no hope of victory. It seemed that a millennium ago, another entity had done something similar. On the blood-red earth at this moment, a deep roar mingled with some unfamiliar language as the demon with broken wings looked up to the sky. Watching the Dragon Queen and Zeus, the flame demon, sensing an aura at odds with the abyss, was unfazed by the vast gap in their strengths. Its eyes were filled only with brutality and the intent to kill. Outsider, demon's ally, die with me. Spell-like technique, burning body explosion. But, boom! In an instant, it was as if a miniature sun had risen from the ground, with waves of fire imbued with divinity sweeping across 100 miles. Low hills were razed to the ground, and the tremendous roar echoed far and wide. Besides the life force of the half-demon flame demon, a faint amount of spatial power also spread with the explosion. The continuing blast showed no signs of stopping. In that moment, Zeus unhesitatingly retreated. Just like Typhon, a lunatic who, at the slightest provocation, would seek a death match, completely ignorant of timing and circumstances. Yet the power of this self-destruction far exceeded Zeus's imagination. Bolstered by that trace of spatial energy, the flame demon's self-destruction had reached the realm of a deity. With a ghastly complexion, Zeus quickly recognized the source of this power. It was like the domain of a territorial god. This demon likely had received recognition from the myriad abyss planes, ruling over a piece of this planar layer. Even though a mere fragment of the intact plane was not enough for further advancement, the self-destruction undoubtedly greatly narrowed this gap, so much so that it caught both the Divine King and the Dragon Queen by surprise. Presumptuous! Get down! Bang! The flames were still burning, spreading, but in the next instant, it seemed the Dragon Queen had finally been enraged. Her dragon wings shook, and an invisible pressure swept across all directions. Under the power unleashed by the Dragon Queen, the spreading flames were immediately suppressed. The blood-red earth quivered slightly, then slowly returned to calm. After a while, the impact of the flame demon's self-destruction was quelled, leaving only Zeus and the Dragon Queen suspended in the air. Five-colored Dragon Mother, I have already advised you, do not act rashly. This is not a world dominated by order. Violence and slaughter can't solve problems. Not all beings will fear your threats. And clearly, creatures like those of the mortal realm will not spawn under the chaotic conditions of Tartarus. Taking a deep breath, Zeus wasn't sure if the disturbance was significant, but fortunately, up until now, there were no signs of native divine-level beings approaching. He was inclined to reprimand this subordinate of the Lord of Darkness, but, considering that they still had to cooperate for a while, he suppressed his anger. The self-destruction is the outcome. If you continue this way, I doubt we can carry on with our mission together. At the rate you're going, it won't be long before we attract the attention of the native divinities, or even more powerful beings. There will not be a second time. She spoke indifferently, interrupting him, her draconic arm returning to normal. For some reason, the Dragon Queen, despite having just faced a failure, seemed surprisingly calm compared to the clearly angered Zeus. She looked at the spot where the flame demon had just exploded, her gaze contemplative, and even, between the lines, one could discern a slight, barely noticeable smile. Chapter 984 Logic of the Abyss. The power of bloodline, the path to the sublimation of bloodline, sounds very similar to the divine blood flowing through the bodies of demigods in the mortal realm. Yet the Dragon Mother was very clear in her heart that whether it was the life from the abyss or the bloodline of the Dragon Clan, both were utterly different from it. The divine blood of all gods is merely an external inheritance, while the bloodlines of the abyss and the Dragon Clan possess a highly unified and ascendable complete system. The simplest manifestation of this is that the offspring of gods almost never change their appearance due to divine blood, nor will they truly master the lower divine authority equal to that of deities. The children of Zeus could be close to thunder, but it would never be through controlling thunder that they gained the power of a demigod. Even they could be completely unrelated to thunder, and the same goes for other progeny of deities. After all, The authority of a deity is controlled through godhood, and such authority from the world cannot be inherited and divided through bloodlines. In contrast, members of the dragon clan and abyss demons would not be like this. Beings with dragon blood would, as their bloodline turns back to its origins, continually have their life forms approach that of their ancestor, with their strength and abilities changing along with it. Different kinds of demons also can complete a change in the essence of life during the process of bloodline sublimation, and even directly undergo a race transition under the chaotic rules. Deities of today cannot comprehend such a state of affairs, for in their view, divine-level power, especially the source power that constructs authority, could not possibly spring out of nowhere. No matter how one looks at it, simple bloodline sublimation within the domain of life cannot create godhood or the unique abilities involving rules themselves inherited from the great divine power of great demons. However, the Dragon Mother agrees with this point because source power indeed cannot be created out of thin air. What the gods do not know, though, is that it can also reassemble, allowing the scattered to return to the origin, and this is the essence of bloodline sublimation for divine-level existences. Take herself, for example. If one day in the future the Dragon Mother were to perish, the bloodline shackles of the dragon clan she spawned would be unlocked. The strongest among them could possibly use this opportunity to complete their sublimation and metamorphosis, thereby stepping into the domain of a dragon god. And in this process, the power they would obtain obviously does not come out of nowhere but from that part scattered deep within the bloodline of the dragon clan after the death of the Dragon Mother. Scattered and then reassembled, with a single race as the main body, allowing strength to pass down through bloodline generation by generation. Even without the essence of immortality, it is as if this race has obtained an alternative form of eternal power. This is the path of bloodline sublimation. In comparison, the gods are undying, and the divine authority lasts forever, so for deities, this is something they could never understand or achieve. However, the bloodline's path also has its drawbacks. On one hand, as the source of the bloodline, creating a race by oneself is not an easy task. On the other hand, as the beneficiaries of bloodline privileges, they cannot surpass the source of their bloodline while it is still alive. And even if the source is dead, it does not mean that everything is fine. Just like those descendants who carry my bloodline, if one day I truly die, whether they inherit my strength and become the new dragon god or if after successfully sublimating their bloodline, they become the vessel for my resurrection, it will depend on their own abilities. Musing in her heart, the elongated pupils in her eyes twinkled slightly. This is why the Dragon Mother could be certain that her creator only provided a portion of strength, and in her perception, she herself should be the true origin of the bloodline of the five-color dragon clan. Otherwise, as an innate evil god like Hypnos, nobody knows what she might end up doing. However, as the source of the bloodline, while no longer needing to worry about oppression from above, if the Dragon Mother wishes to continue strengthening her power, she can only seek it from the outside world. This is also one of her purposes for entering the abyss because the path of bloodline in the abyss is in fact more twisted. The so-called bloodline sources of abyss demons, many can be traced back to the inception of the first 6 demon gods, while the rest are simply a conglomeration of alien chaotic source force. There was once a great demon in the myriad abyss planes on the verge of unifying the realm, which chose the direction of bloodline sublimation to be the alien forces that even Tartarus could not digest, and attempted to advance to new demon god through this. This is common in the abyss, and it is not always necessary for a great demon on the brink of unifying a realm layer to be able to ascend this way. Perhaps it's just a bloodline mutation, and a demon from the abyss could directly become a new demon god with a part of the mixed origins of an alien deity. Then, under the power of Tartarus, evolve into a corresponding demon race, adding a new type of existence to the diversity of species in the abyss. Of course, leaping to the heavens and the path to ascension sounds great, but there can't possibly be purely good things in the abyss. Because these demons who chose the dangerous path are more likely to be directly destroyed in the process of ascension due to the conflicting mixed origins, and their bodies become nothing more than a lowly feast for abyss demons. Even if a demon that unified a realm layer could receive the blessing of the abyss while during ascension, thus greatly increasing the chances of success, this probability is still not absolute, which is why today's myriad abyss planes still remains without a lord. Even more bluntly, according to the display in the Lord's seal, the sum of demon lords who have died in wars with hell might not even compare to a fraction of those who have failed in their ascensions. Chapter 985. Logic of the Abyss _2. The bottomless abyss is vast and endless, and though the Dragon Mother has a mark in her hand, she cannot know how many layers actually exist. Almost periodically, a demon god fails to ascend, causing turbulence in their realm space, and then enhancing the strength of the entire abyss. Indeed, Tartarus may not have a complete consciousness, but he is not entirely mad. The simple path he provides for the creatures within the realms. The power of the bloodline and the road to its sublimation seems quite similar to the divine blood that flows within the bodies of the demigods from the mortal realm. But the Dragon Mother is well aware that whether it is life from the abyss or the bloodline of the Dragon Clan, both are utterly different from it. The divine blood of the All-Gods is merely an external inheritance, whereas the bloodline of the abyss and the Dragon Clan has a very strong consistency and an evolving and perfect system. The simplest manifestation of this is that the offspring of the All-Gods almost never change their appearance due to divine blood, nor do they really master the lower divine authority as the deities do. The son of Zeus may be close to thunder, but certainly not because of the power of the demigod gained by controlling thunder, and they may even be completely unrelated to thunder. Similar is the case with other offspring of deities. After all, divine authority is controlled by godhood, and this authority from the world cannot possibly be inherited and divided through bloodlines. Correspondingly, that is not the case with the Dragon Clan and the Abyss demons. Beings with dragon blood will, as their bloodline regresses, gradually change their life form to more closely resemble that of the ancestor, along with a concurrent transformation in strength and abilities. Different kinds of demons can also complete a change in the nature of their life in the process of bloodline sublimation and even directly undergo a racial leap under the rules of chaos. Present-day deities cannot comprehend this, as in their view, divine-level power, especially the source power that creates authority, cannot simply increase out of nowhere. No matter how one looks at it, simply sublimating the bloodline in the domain of life cannot create godhood, or those unique abilities involving the law itself inherited from the great divine power of great demons. But regarding this point, the Dragon Mother admits that is indeed the case because the source power certainly cannot come into being out of thin air. What the All-Gods don't know, however, is that it can also reassemble and let the scattered return to origin. This is the essence of bloodline sublimation of divine-level beings. Just like herself, suppose one day the Dragon Mother falls and dies, the bloodline shackles of the Dragon Clan born from her will be opened. The most powerful amongst them would then have the potential to complete sublimation and transformation through this, and thus step into the domain of the Dragon God. During this process, the power they acquire is clearly not created from nothing but comes from that part of the Dragon Mother that was scattered into the depths of the Dragon Clan's bloodline after her death. Scattering and reassembling, using one race as the main body, allowing power to pass through the bloodline from generation to generation, even without the nature of immortality, is the equivalent of letting this race obtain an alternative form of undying strength, which is the path of bloodline sublimation. In contrast, the All-Gods are undying, and divine authority lasts forever, so for deities, this is something they will never understand and achieve. Just that this path of bloodline power also has its drawbacks. On one hand, as the source of the bloodline, creating a race on one's own is not an easy task. On the other hand, as the successors who enjoy the benefits of a bloodline, they cannot surpass their source as long as it lives. And even if the source is dead, it does not mean everything is settled. Just like those descendants who carry my bloodline, if one day I truly die, whether they inherit my power to become the new Dragon God or become the vessel for my resurrection after successfully sublimating their bloodline will depend on their individual talents. She mused inwardly, a faint flicker in the depths of her narrow eyes. The Dragon Mother was only certain that her creator had provided part of her power, but in her perception, she herself should be the true origin of the five-color Dragon Clan's bloodline. Otherwise, as an innate evil god like Hypnos, who knew what she might do. However, as the source of the bloodline, even though she no longer needed to worry about the oppression from above, The Dragon Mother could only seek external sources if she wished to continue strengthening her power. This was also one of the reasons she entered the Abyss, because the bloodline pathways in the Abyss were even more twisted. The so-called bloodline origins of the Abyss demons can be traced back to the 6 demon gods who were born at the beginning, and the rest are simply conglomerates of alien chaotic source force. The myriad Abyss planes had once seen a great demon on the verge of unifying the realm, who chose the direction of bloodline sublimation to be the alien forces within Tartarus that chaos could hardly digest, and attempted to ascend as a new demon god. This is common in the Abyss, and it's not necessarily only the great demons on the verge of unifying a realm who can ascend in this way. Perhaps just a bloodline mutation, and an Abyss demon could directly become a new demon god with a mixture of chaotic origin powers from alien deities, and then evolve under the power of Tartarus into a corresponding demon race, adding yet another type of being to the diversity of species in the Abyss. Of course, ascending to godhood in one step sounds great, but naturally, there could not be anything purely wonderful in the Abyss. Because those demons who chose the perilous path are more likely to be torn apart by the conflicts of the chaotic origins during their ascent and die explosively, then becoming a bloody feast for lower Abyss demons. Even though a demon that has unified a realm may receive the blessings of the Abyss while during ascension, greatly increasing the chances of successful ascendancy, this probability is still not absolute, which is why the myriad Abyss planes remain masterless till this day. To put it more bluntly, according to the Lord Seal, the combined number of demon lords who perished in wars with Hell is probably far less than those who died failing to ascend. The bottomless abyss is vast and endless. The Dragon Mother, though in possession of the seal, could not determine just how many levels of realms exist. Almost periodically, there would be demon gods failing promotion, causing turmoil in their realms, and then increasing the strength of the entire abyss. Yes, although Tartarus does not have a complete consciousness, he is not entirely mad. The brutal and simple way of ascension he presents to the beings within the realms is not without its benefits because, throughout this process, whether successful or not, the abyss is able to expedite the digestion of these trash origins to some extent, bringing them in line with its own law. If a demon is lucky enough to become a stable new demon god, then he can absorb these powers in one gulp. And if unlucky, it is merely a demon at the cusp of ascension that dies in exchange for diminishing some of the conflicts between chaotic source forces for the Abyss Mother, and as long as it ultimately dies in its own world, it cannot be considered a loss for the Abyss. A chaotic world requires chaotic solutions. Trash is made less trashy through violence. This is the logic of the Abyss, different from the step-by-step ascension pathways under the law of the material world that all gods take. When it was first discovered, the Great Serpent of Hell was amazed, openly saying if the order of the current world were to undergo a drastic change someday, then Tartarus could very likely become an incontrovertible median point outside of the order of chaos, and even gain power on par with the Mother Tree. Of course, if that day ever comes, the Abyss can only ever remain will. It will become a being akin to a microcosm of the current world's law, fully manifesting as a macroscopic world concept, or even assimilating into one aspect of the world, never again having the chance to walk the realms of chaos as an independent deity, though since the birth of the world, he has never had such a possibility. All right, Lord Clonides. After sorting through the Lord Seal, I have found it. Chapter 986 Havagmar. Woo! Woo woo! Upon the earth, the cold wind is piercing, chilling to the bone. The breath of the harsh winter, mixed with ice crystals and debris, blows from the north, lifting layer upon layer of ice and snow from the stark white earth. Occasionally, slight signs of life activity appear in the chill wind, only to vanish tracelessly in the expanse. This is the Abyss. It forms a world of its own externally but internally. It's ever-changing. Ultimately, this is due to its chaotic nature, not favoring any rules or attributes, embodying vast inclusivity as well as severe harshness. As long as the rules of chaos can construct a stable spatial structure, Tartarus wouldn't care what goes on inside. It simply watches them slowly become a new level within itself, or like those demon gods who failed to ascend, eventually collapse under the conflict of chaotic rules and crumble into broken pieces within the abyss. Buzz, in the realm of ice and snow, hovering above a mountain of ice on the ground. The void slightly twists. A phantom light and shadow gradually solidifies from nothingness. Molten lava and flames ascend behind the illusion, interwoven with thunder and shadows. Until a moment, as the sounds of spatial fragmentation ring out, Zeus's avatar and the five-colored dragon mother step through the portal one after the other, landing on the icy mountain covered in snow. Divine power rises around, casually extinguishing the demon fire that followed. A flicker of dissatisfaction crosses Zeus's handsome face. However, the dragon mother beside him shows a delighted expression, continuously examining a pulsing crimson heart in her hands. Surrounded by dancing flames, the power of a deity, akin to that of demon gods, lingers around the heart. Undoubtedly, this should be the original heart core left by an abyssal demon lord comparable to a true god. Externally, the power surrounding this heart core appears barely to reach the lowest threshold of a true god, yet essentially it has broken through that boundary. The fall of an abyssal demon, even in the chaotic Tartarus, is indeed an event significant enough to shake the region. My apologies, Dragon Mother. I have yet to congratulate you on fulfilling your wish, but if I remember correctly, our agreement previously did not include unilaterally acting against native creatures of the abyss. You acted without consulting me, taking the initiative. Now, shouldn't you give me an explanation? He asked in a deep voice. At this moment, Zeus's mood is evidently not very good. It's not only because of the dragon mother's presumptuous actions, but also because of her attitude. Previously, after delineating strategies for subsequent actions from the myriad abyss planes, the Divine King's avatar and the dragon mother, relying on the identity of a subordinate lord, delved deeper into Tartarus. Unfortunately, the first level of the abyss, despite being spatially connected to numerous levels, does not include the interface of 338 to 0. All along their journey, to avoid any gaps at crucial moments, Zeus and the Dragon Mother were quite low-key. They intentionally avoided those abyss levels already under Lord's rule, even going the long way around when necessary, sparing no effort. Fortunately, the subordinate Lord Seal indeed proved very effective. Guided by it, both encountered no troubles until they were close to their destination. However, just when Zeus slightly relaxed, thinking there should be no issues this trip, an unexpected event still occurred inadvertently. Inside the layer of abyss within the Tower of Blazing Flames, 284 to 1, by sheer coincidence, they encountered a powerful demon in the midst of ascension. Although it had unified the entire level, it had not yet completed the ritual to advance to a true Abyss Lord. Hence, the subordinate Lord Seal had not alerted them. More coincidentally, this ascendant demon happened to share the same lineage as the one they had slain on myriad abyss planes, its endpoint of ascension being one of the 6 great demon gods birthed by the Mother of Demons. We actually could have avoided it. These despicable abyss demons hardly observe kinship, or rather, they merely happen to evolve into the same species, yet would not seek us out during their ascension. If it were not for you taking action, if not for me acting, it would have also died. In fact, just a newly ascended demon god, not yet fused with the interface forces of the Tower of Blazing Flames. It's not a match for me even collectively. The Dragon Mother indifferently responded, casually swallowing the demon god's heart, temporarily storing it in a space within her. At this moment, the Dragon Mother's mood is undoubtedly very good. In contrast, Zeus's mood is obviously not very good. He had realized that her action was completely intentional. Knowing that he would definitely help, the Dragon Mother dared to act so recklessly and intercept. Yes, not just taking action to kill, but to intercept, because that newly ascended demon was indeed not. Woo! Woo woo! Upon the earth, the cold wind is piercing, chilling to the bone. The breath of the harsh winter, mixed with ice crystals and debris, blows from the north, lifting layer upon layer of ice and snow from the stark white earth. Occasionally, slight signs of life activity appear in the chill wind, only to vanish tracelessly in the expanse. This is the abyss. It forms a world of its own externally but internally. It's ever-changing. Ultimately, this is due to its chaotic nature, not favoring any rules or attributes, embodying vast inclusivity as well as severe harshness. As long as the rules of chaos can construct a stable spatial structure, Tartarus wouldn't care what goes on inside. Chapter 987 Havagmar_2. He would only watch as they gradually became a new dimension within himself, or, like those demon gods who failed to ascend, ultimately collapse under the conflict of chaotic rules and become shattered remnants in the abyss. Buzz, in the realm of ice and snow, above a towering iceberg on Earth. The void slightly twisted, and a phantom light shadow gradually solidified from the void. Molten lava and flames rose behind the shadow, interweaving with thunder and shadows, until a moment came when, with the sound of space shattering, Zeus's avatar and the five-colored dragon mother stepped out one after another from the portal, landing on the ice-covered iceberg. Divine power surged around him, casually extinguishing the demon fire that followed, and a trace of dissatisfaction flashed across Zeus's handsome face. However, the dragon mother beside him showed a look of joy, constantly examining a pulsating crimson heart in her hands. Flames danced around the heart, and the divine power of a demon god, comparable to a deity, hovered around it. Undoubtedly, this should be the original heart core left by an abyssal demon lord of the true god level. Although from the outside, the power surrounding this heart core only barely reached the lowest threshold of a true god, its essence ultimately transcended that boundary. The fall of an abyssal demon lord, even in the chaotic Tartarus, is enough to shake a region. Dragon Mother, I have yet to congratulate you on achieving your desire. Only, if I remember correctly, our previous agreement didn't include unilaterally attacking native creatures of the abyss. You acted without consulting me, taking the lead. Now, shouldn't you explain yourself? He asked in a deep voice. At this moment, Zeus's mood was clearly not too good. Not only because of the dragon mother's presumption but also because of her attitude. Previously, after strategizing for subsequent actions in the myriad abyss planes, the Divine King's avatar and the Dragon Mother, using the identity of a subordinate lord, traveled deep into Tartarus. Because the first layer of the abyss, although connected spatially with many dimensions, unfortunately, did not include interface 338-0. Along the way, to avoid discrepancies at critical moments, Zeus and the Dragon Mother were quite low profile. They deliberately avoided those abyss layers already ruled by lords, even if it required taking several detours. Fortunately, the subordinate Lord Seal was indeed very effective. Guided by it, both of them encountered no troubles until they were close to their destination. However, just as Zeus was slightly relieved, thinking there should be no issues in this trip, an accident still happened unintentionally. Inside the Tower of Blazing Flames, in Abyss Layer 284-1, the two coincidentally encountered a powerful demon that was in the process of ascending. It had already unified the entire layer, but had not yet completed the ritual to fully ascend to a true Abyss Lord, so the subordinate Lord Seal did not alert them. And what was more coincidental was that this ascending demon shared the same bloodline as the one they had eliminated in the myriad abyss planes. It was ascending to become one of the 6 great demon gods once nurtured by the Mother of Demons. We could have actually avoided it. These despicable abyss demons do not have much regard for kinship, or rather, they simply evolved into the same species, but they wouldn't seek us out during their ascension. If you hadn't made a move, if I hadn't done it, it would have died anyway. In fact, as a newly promoted demon god, without merging with the interface power of the Tower of Blazing Flames, it is no match for me at all. The Dragon Queen spoke indifferently in response. Without much care, she swallowed the demon god's heart and stored it temporarily in a space within her body. At this moment, the Dragon Queen is undoubtedly in a very good mood. In contrast, Zeus's mood is clearly not very good. He had realized that her actions were deliberate, knowing that he would definitely intervene to help. That's why the Dragon Queen dared to so blatantly snatch away the prize. Yes, it was not just about slaughtering but also intercepting. Because the newly promoted demon god indeed was no match for her, but in reality, it could very well be a crop cultivated solely for harvesting, or a prey that had long been targeted. At the ceremony of its promotion to demon god, both Zeus and the Dragon Queen were latecomers, while at the edge of the interface, another powerful flame demon lord had been waiting for a long time. Being one of the initial 6 great demon gods from the abyss, this blood descendant of the flame demon lord was undoubtedly close to that powerful entity in hell, who made the meteorologically mighty titans repeatedly retreat. Its own strength had already reached a level comparable to intermediate divine power in the domain of demon lords, and with the enhancement of the interface power, it was undoubtedly even stronger. Whether it was the newly promoted demon god or the Tower of Blazing Flames, both had already been considered as its possessions in the bag, so the Dragon Queen's bold move to snatch away the prize undoubtedly triggered its wrath instantaneously. Had it not been for Zeus's quick decision to have the elves that followed them carry items imbued with their essences to scatter and flee to attract firepower, they would not have escaped so easily. It was not a question of whether they could fight and win, but once a full-on conflict with a local lord broke out in the abyss, it would not be good for the Dragon Queen, who had already pledged allegiance, and he himself would certainly become the target of public criticism due to the exposure of his power in the real world. So, to ensure that this expedition did not end in disaster halfway, Zeus had no choice but to hold his nose and help them out of the predicament. As for those elves that drew the demon god's attention, it could only be said that their deaths were not in vain. All right, Clonides, wasn't it because of today that you sought those ordinary elves to accompany us? You just didn't expect they would be used for my sake. And no matter what, we have successfully escaped. Even if that self-proclaimed master of Balrog flame demon, Lord, remembered our essences, only I, the future Abyss Lord, need to worry. Or as a deity of Olympus, do you also plan to stay in the abyss, not returning to the material world filled with sunlight and flowers? Her voice was calm, but she couldn't help sneering internally. The 5-colored Dragon Queen knew very well that after this incident, this deity named Clonides would certainly hold a grudge against her. But so what? As long as he still needed her to cover his trail, he definitely wouldn't dare to turn against her as long as their journey in the abyss wasn't over. As for what happened later, according to the Lord of Darkness, he wouldn't need the Dragon Queen in the material world, and having come to the abyss herself, she wasn't too keen on leaving either. Situated in Tartarus, almost no great entities from the outside world could interfere here, not even Erebus. Without surprises, once her mission here is completed, even her creator would no longer be able to make demands of her. Of course, this doesn't mean the Dragon Queen has plans to rebel. After all, there's no benefit in that for her. But being a naturally evil god, she would rather keep the initiative in her own hands rather than someone else's. Plus, with the recently acquired demon god's heart, that is not just the life's essence of a newly promoted flame demon lord, but also another piece of the puzzle for her authority. She is the 5-colored Dragon Queen, but unfortunately, to this day, she has only reached perfection with the black dragon power from the Lord of Darkness flesh and blood, and prospered in the caverns inhabited by dark elves. Besides, after purification, life had filled half of the red dragon power, leaving the other half only 2. Once she completely absorbs the power of this flame demon heart core and fully extracts this fire power, then, Chapter 988, Fountain and Illusion. Hvergelmer Spring, the boiling soup, the unending spring, Zeus had certainly heard this name before. It is the earliest water of the 9 realms, from which flow 12 rivers known as Ilivigar, wherein the ancestor giant Ymir was born. Though Asgard's divine domain sits loftily on high and does not hold the cold and fog-filled lower realm of Niflheim in high regard, they have still recorded some things related to it. For instance, Zeus had once seen in a vision Yggdrasil with one of its main root systems entrenched there, and also those beings known as the residents of Nibelungen by external entities. Thus, it seems likely that the name of this layer of the abyss also comes from there. Yes, indeed I have heard of it. With a flicker in his eyes, Zeus felt that he had guessed why the Dragon Mother had chosen this plane. Clearly, he had documents from Asgard, but the Lord of Darkness must also have similar sources of information, such as Svartalfheim, which seems to be a realm with a propensity towards the dark attribute. So that's it, you came for this spring water. A fountain that holds both extreme poison and extreme cold. Indeed, it complements your powers well. The divine springs of an alien realm are indeed precious, but now that Zeus knows the truth, he no longer cares about it. To the Dragon Mother, The Hvergelmer spring might be considered an extremely precious treasure, but for him, such things could no longer enhance his strength. It would be ideal to obtain it naturally, but there's no need for excessive regret if not. Of the 3 great divine springs of Asgard recorded in the alien realm, only the Mimir's spring, symbolizing wisdom, could stir his heart. Although it was just a glimpse in a fantastical vision, Zeus remains infatuated with it to this day. If he could always have a spring of wisdom water by his side, then perhaps he could compensate for the loss of Métis. It seems you have no more questions, so come, choose between poison and cold, and I will deal with the other. The dragon wings flapped in the cold wind, and seeing that Zeus had no further objections, the dragon mother immediately spoke up. As soon as she personally entered Nibelungen, there was no longer any barrier to the attraction of the Hvergelmer spring for her. Although the dragon mother couldn't be sure whether this attraction was purely due to a complementarity of powers, she was certain that this spring of the alien realm would be able to replenish her strength. All right, since I'm to choose first, then I'll choose the cold stream. The stench of the poison swamp is indeed discomforting, but presumably, the dragon mother doesn't mind it. He nodded lightly, made his choice offhand, and grasped the ethereal map. Zeus then immediately took flight. Without further ado, he now just wanted to quickly make this cunning mother dragon the lord and then leave this plane of existence. Behind him, the dragon mother was not concerned about the divine king's attitude. Seeing this, she simply flew off in the exact opposite direction, straight towards the poisoned spring amidst the snow. Just as Zeus said, she indeed did not care about the corruption of the poison swamp, as long as it brought her tangible benefits. Thus quickly, the cold wind blew past, and as the 2 outsiders left in succession, this snowy mountain that had never been touched by outsiders once again returned to its former tranquility. Shoo! Riding lightning through the high skies, the figure of Zeus flashed among the silver serpents. Unlike many of the realms he had passed through along the way, to the surprise of the divine king, it seemed that there were no lords in Nibelungen. Crossing the boundary between the glacier and the poison swamp, thunder swirled beside Zeus. This specially created flesh and blood incarnation could be considered a pure thunder god, with those parts associated with sovereign not imposed upon him. Rapidly speeding along, after who knows how long, at a certain moment, Zeus finally found the glacier that stood upon the earth. The cold wind was piercing, reaching straight for the soul. Standing at the summit of the ice mountain, the divine king easily found a spring eye that appeared to run from the peak straight down, piercing through the entire glacier. The bubbling spring flowed from it, and the space-time around seemed to be frozen. This was a cold capable of freezing a divine body, and even Zeus, in his incarnation, felt a trace of chill. As expected, that was the spring eye that the mother dragon had spoken of, following it straight down to eventually reach the core of the plane. Carefully observing, in Zeus's memory, the chaos terrain had never had a natural divine spring like this. Those illustrious springs came from other sources, for instance, the youthful spring water created by the goddess of youth's golden cup. Its strength actually came from a divine artifact, and it wasn't that there was anything special about the spring itself. Whoosh! Scooping up a handful of spring water, the divine king gazed for a moment, then gulped it down. The bone-chilling cold from the body hit the guts directly, causing Zeus to shiver involuntarily. However, after a moment passed and warmth returned, the divine king couldn't help but feel somewhat disappointed. Creation divine spring, unending soup. In the legends of the alien realm, it nurtured the ancestor giant and sustained the 9 realms divine wood, but in the end, is this all there is to it? It's a pity. Even if its powers are now split in 2, it's still not living up to its reputation. Compared to the wisdom water in the vision, the 2 are simply incomparable. With a slight shake of his head, at this point, he fully let go of the last trace of greed in his heart. Initially, when he had just arrived at this plane, Zeus thought he had felt something wrong. Chapter 989. Fountain and Illusion _2. After all, in his perception, this so-called creation hot spring is really weak. Even the realm that bears it seems inconsequential in power. The Divine King originally thought that perhaps the divine artifact was deliberately obfuscating itself, not willing to be used by outsiders, but now it seems he might have been overthinking it. Indeed, a world-ending catastrophe, the Spring of Wisdom might have been destroyed once and for all, and the similarly named Ord Spring probably hasn't fared much better. As for Hiva, Hvergelmer Spring, boiling soup, unending spring, Zeus of course had heard of this name. It is the primal water of the 9 realms, from which 12 great rivers called Ilivigar flow out, and the ancient giant Ymir was born from this source. Although the divine domain of Asgard is lofty and doesn't really regard the lower realm of Niflheim, filled with cold and fog, that highly, they still recorded some things related to it. For example, the Yggdrasil that Zeus once saw in a vision had one of its main roots embedded there, and also those residents called Nibelungen by the outside world. Looking at it this way, this layer's name of the abyss probably also comes from this. Yes, I have indeed heard of it. His eyes flashing slightly, Zeus felt he had guessed why the Dragon Mother had chosen this layer. Clearly, he had documentation from Asgard, but the Lord of Darkness likely had similar sources of information, like Svartalfheim, which seemed to be a realm with a dark attribute. So, it turns out you're here for this fountain. A spring containing both extreme poison and extreme cold. Indeed, it complements your power well. The divine spring of the alien realm is indeed precious. But now that he knew the truth, Zeus didn't care much for it anymore. For the Dragon Mother, the Hvergelmer Spring might be considered an extremely precious treasure. But for him, this item could no longer enhance his power. It would be best if he could acquire it, but there was no need to feel too regretful if he couldn't. Among the 3 great divine springs of the alien realm recorded in Asgard, only the Mimir's Spring, symbolizing wisdom, could stir his heart. Although it was only a vision in a fantasy, Zeus still remembered it fondly to this day. Having a spring of wisdom water always by his side might allow him to compensate for what was lacked after Métis left. It seems you have no more doubts, so come on. Choose between poison and cold current, and I will take care of the remaining one. As the dragon wings flapped in the cold wind, seeing that Zeus finally had no objections, the Dragon Mother immediately spoke. As she personally stepped into Nibelungen, the attraction of the Hvergelmer Spring to her was no longer hindered. Although the Dragon Mother couldn't be sure whether this attraction was purely due to a complementarity of powers, she was certain that the divine spring of the alien realm could definitely replenish her power. Alright, since you let me choose first, I'll choose the cold current. The stench of the poisonous swamp is indeed uncomfortable, but I suppose the Dragon Mother hardly minds it. Nodding slightly, he casually made his choice. Grabbing the ethereal map, Zeus immediately soared into the sky. No need to say more, he now just wanted to quickly make this cunning Dragon Mother a lord, then leave this lair. Meanwhile, the Dragon Mother didn't care about the Divine King's attitude either. Seeing this, she likewise flew in the completely opposite direction, heading straight for the poisoned spring amidst the ice and snow. As Zeus said, she indeed didn't mind the corruption of the poisonous swamp, as long as it brought her tangible benefits. Thus quickly, as the cold wind swept through, with the 2 outsiders leaving consecutively, the snow-covered mountain that had never been trodden by outsiders returned to its usual tranquility. Swish! Commanding the thunder and lightning, Zeus's figure flickered among the silver serpents. Unlike many of the realms he passed along the way, what surprised the Divine King a bit was that there seemed to be no lords inside Nibelungen. Crossing the boundary between the glacier and the toxic swamp, thunder surrounded Zeus. This fleshly avatar created through special methods was truly a pure thunder god, without any of the parts related to sovereign imposed on him. Racing along the way, not knowing how long had passed, at a certain moment, Zeus finally found the glacier standing on the earth. The cold wind was piercing, reaching straight to the soul. Standing atop the ice mountain, the Divine King easily found a spring seemingly running straight down from the peak, piercing the entirety of the ice mountain. Gurgling water flowed from it, with the surrounding space and time seemingly frozen. This was a cold capable of freezing a divine body, and even Zeus, in his avatar form of divine power, felt a hint of chill. Without surprise, this must be the spring mentioned by the Mother Dragon, which led all the way down to the core of the realm. Observing closely, in Zeus's memory, Chaos Terrain had never naturally possessed such a divine spring. Those famously named springs actually had other origins. Like the youthful spring water created by the goddess of youth's golden cup, its power actually came from the divine artifact, not from anything peculiar about the spring itself. Whoosh! Scooping up a handful of spring water, the divine king gazed at it for a moment before drinking it down. The bone-chilling cold traveled from his body straight to his brain, making Zeus shiver unconsciously. However, after a moment, when warmth regained, the divine king couldn't help but feel a bit disappointed. Creation divine spring, unending soup. The tales from the alien realm speak of birthing the ancestor giant and nourishing the water that supports the 9 realms' divine wood. Is this all there is to it? Regrettably, even if its power is currently split in half, it truly is not as remarkable as its name suggests. Compared to the wisdom water in Illusions, there really is no comparison. He shook his head slightly, finally letting go of the last bit of greed in his heart. When he first arrived at this realm, Zeus thought he might have sensed it wrong. After all, in his perception, this so-called creation hot spring was rather weak. Even the realm that contained it seemed so trivial in power. The divine king originally thought this might be the divine artifact obscuring itself, not wishing to be used by outsiders, but now it seemed he might have overthought it. Indeed, after an apocalypse, the spring of wisdom might have been destroyed, and Urd's spring associated with its name might not have met a better fate. As for Havagmar spring, its survival to this day might be due to the influence of its creation hot spring water. Still, even so, it has lost almost all its power and ended up in its current state. If there are no surprises, it should be exactly as I thought. This spring's utmost cold is comparable to its toxicity, yet according to Asgard's records, it should give birth to 12 great rivers, only one of which carries poisonous water. And most importantly, the life force capable of nurturing the ancient gods must have also passed away, or perhaps has already been completely drained. Since that is the case, there's no need for me to take any action. Feeling a bit sentimental, nothing can remain untouched in the face of world destruction. Taking a step forward, Zeus finally stepped into the divine spring in front of him. The thunder cleared away the icy spring water, and the divine king dove deeper through the passage. The external brightness gradually faded. In no time, Zeus was getting closer to the core of this realm. Gradually, pale blue ghostly light rose all around, and the icy chill seemed to have solidified into substance. The surrounding environment was partly real, partly illusory, as if swimming through a dreamlike world. However, the divine king was clearly not fooled, he just kept moving forward. After an unknown period, the spatial dimensions below this terrain became unknowable. At a certain moment, Zeus distinctly felt the cold intensifying around him. He seemed to have reached the end. Gathering his spirit, he focused, but at this moment, the divine king's brows involuntarily twitched. This is Chapter 990, The Grand Ceremony. Beneath the poison spring, the water was clear and traceless. On the way inward, underground in Nibelungen, the dragon mother's speed was even faster than Zeus's. Descending rapidly, she initially maintained her original appearance. Gradually, a huge shadow replaced the winged dragon-like figure. Hidden in the waters, her divine body, even without fully stretching out, was colossal. 2 dragon heads of different colors were surveying the surroundings, along with 3 other bulges on her shoulders not yet formed. This was the true form of the 5-colored dragon queen, and also when her power was at its strongest. In the end, the dragon queen born from the alien realm's dragon egg was not a deity of chaos. Her true power did not come from the godhood's grant. Slight traces of origin flowed within her marrow, yet more of it relied on her progeny's existence in a mysterious way that seemed both there and not there. It functioned in a unique manner, yet did not interfere with the mental state of the one in command. Dragon wings stirred. The corrosive poison spring could not damage the scales on the dragon mother's body, and the ownerless powers were even being absorbed bit by bit. The enormous vertical pupils tracked the divine spring's path, allowing the Dragon Mother to quickly approach the endpoint. This was yet another characteristic of the Bloodline's path. Since the source power was not restricted by Godhood's law, if one wished not to let the power infest their sanity, they had to choose another solution. Hence, the Bloodline's origin turned the progeny into a vast net, transforming the race's existence in the world into a barrier, and ultimately placing the source power in an elusive place near the Sea of Origin, to avoid various disadvantages. Without a doubt, this was an effective solution, though it also had many other issues. It was still very good in comparison. After all, the deities of chaos wielded godhood, so authority was given and taken by the world's law. Deities of the 9 realms and Heminu, though they could hold the authority in their hands, dared not merge with it. Not only could it be taken by others, but there was also the possibility of aging and death. Nearly every method of achieving deity status had its advantages and disadvantages, whether relying on external grants to cut off source power's influence or constructing barriers to sever their connection. The pros and cons of each are difficult to quantify. It all comes down to differing thoughts and ideas. Whoosh! Descending all the way, the area around the poison spring gradually emitted a hint of green glow. That was the essence of the toxic power, so pure it even caused a few wisps of low remnants resembling the authority never manifested in chaos's past to scatter. 2 giant dragon heads at the shoulder-neck bulges greedily absorbed the surrounding powers. Having reached this place, the journey's end was near. Slowing down, the Dragon Mother needed to wait for a signal from the other side. Only by simultaneously squeezing the origin of the divine spring from both sides with divine-level power could the bifurcated spring's eyes be reunited. Since Zeus had not yet arrived, she could not act first. So she quietly waited. The Dragon Mother could only wander around the bottom of the spring. Yet as time slowly passed, a hint of hesitation flashed through the giant dragon head's pupils. On one hand, it was because of Zeus, who according to logic should have arrived by now even with a somewhat slower speed. His delay was unexpected. Of course, this was not a big deal, it was just a matter of waiting a bit longer. But on the other hand, the Dragon Mother couldn't help but take notice. What is that? The vertical pupil shimmered with a golden light, still discernible even tens of thousands of feet underground. However, at the bottom of this poison spring, the Dragon Mother unexpectedly discovered something that should not have been there. It was a scale, a black armor scale stained with traces of blood. From its markings, it seemed as if it was once pierced through by some terrifying force. And that force seemed to be ever-present, such that even though the scale had long left its owner's body, it still could not escape its pursuit. Either time had passed too long, or this force was erased by the abyss's law. One way or another, in the current poison spring, the once powerful force that shattered the scale was no longer present. Only the Dragon Mother, looking at this blood-stained black scale, felt a deep sense of familiarity. Nibelungen, at the bottom of the poison spring. As a realm of the abyss, there should be no shortage of beings that can ignore the toxicity of the poison spring. But for some reason, I can't sense any powerful demon presence from this lair at all. Not even a subordinate lord. If this is not a coincidence, then the only explanation is that this lair is actually part of Tartarus and not open to the public. A hint of solemnity flickered through the height of the vertical pupils. Regarding the possibility of this place not being open to the public, the Dragon Mother had speculated since entering here. After all, it's understandable for a realm to lack a unified lord, but the current state of Nibelungen was just too desolate. To say nothing of a subordinate lord with a mark, on her way here, the Dragon Mother had not even encountered any demon with characteristic features of this realm, which seemed rather unreasonable. It's known that although the current rules of the Abyss are not yet complete and the birth of demons does not have a unified pattern, one could still see crazed, bloodthirsty figures in virtually every plane, varying only in number and type. So if one excludes highly improbable speculations, the only possibility left is that this lair has never been made public and naturally, no demons were born.